Am I advocating for anarchy?
Slightly.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in class today, and some of the nursing students were saying how it's not good to like work out right before bed, and I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what if you're going to bed?
According to who?
You don't know
According
exactly.
to who?
Like, what hormones are going on? Like, how are you feeling individually?
And also the other question too is, we look at these studies like they're the be all end all. Right?
Yeah.
Like every person is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like there isn't such a thing as genetic difference, environmental difference, behavioral difference. Like I studied at the Primal Health Institute to become a primal health coach. I didn't end up finishing because I started in ancient strength, but I still want to finish like the certification. It's like a 2-year school. And Mark SISSON, the guy who founded Primal Kitchen, I'm sure you've seen
Primal
their
Kitchen?
shit. Yeah,
I think I've heard of it.
You've seen them on like all the store shelves. And they're huge. They got sold to Kraft for like $1 gazillion or something.
Jeez.
And Mark SISSON is this guy. Can you pull up a picture of Mark SISSON?
Yeah, pull it
up. This guy's like jacked. SISSON, SISSON. He's jacked. He's like, I want to say he's like
Healthy
60.
jacked or like
Yes.
unhealthy jacked?
No.
Because there's
Healthy
a difference.
Jacked.
Okay,
not like he's gonna,
yeah.
Healthy
Oh my
jacked.
God. How?
No. But the key is look up how old he is, Kenny.
Wait, was he in that documentary on Netflix with
I don't know.
Zac Efron?
Oh, I don't know. I don't watch Netflix.
Look that up real quick. Mark SISSON, Zac Efron. It should pop up.
What?
Sisson.
Sisson?
It might work.
What
Just
It's
Zac
close
Efron.
enough.
Oh, Zac Efron.
Yeah,
It's close enough.
it should work.
Oh my God.
Google.
Yeah, I don't know.
If it doesn't pop up, yeah, click that. Yeah, it is.
Is that the
It
dude?
is him. They did a study on
Come
water.
Mark's the coolest dude, man.
Make it pop. Make it bigger.
Yeah.
You can double tap the. Yeah. Sorry, I know it's hard
Which one?
maneuvering from all the way over there.
Which one do I click?
Just scroll down a little bit. Maybe you might have to type in Netflix.
Are you sure it's the same guy?
If I remember correctly, that is him. If his face just looks.
Hmm.
Watch Down
Is
to
that the
Earth.
show? Down to Earth?
It might be.
Expert Darren Olean. Nope, it's a different,
Oh.
good-looking, fit
Yeah, a
white
different,
guy.
extraordinarily
Yeah.
handsome old guy. But
Okay,
look,
so
Google,
Mark SISSON.
Google how old Mark SISSON is.
All right.
That's the key.
All right.
And I don't even remember why we were talking about this at this point.
Yeah, but hey,
What
Mark
was-
SISSON.
He is
68 years old.
58
Wow.
years old, and he's
Look at this guy.
jacked, dude.
Look at that dude.
That's quite impressive.
Crazy.
We were talking about Primal Kitchen. I don't remember why.
So yeah,
It was a really good thought
it's
too.
a great way to start. You were saying how you stopped doing school there, but you plan on going back.
Yes, but we
To
were
study
talking about
primal.
something before that made me bring that up. Kenny
you-
said something.
Me? I didn't
Yeah.
say anything.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, we'll just maneuver it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
As a podcast host, it's my responsibility to know these things. But
Mm.
well, I watched Joe Rogan.
Yeah, come on, man. Continuity. God
Yeah.
damn it.
He's so good. The guy will be like,
He's
I
really-
lost my
yeah.
train of thought. Joe Rogan will be like, oh, you were talking about blah, blah, blah.
Dude,
I'm like,
The guy
how'd
will
you
go
know
on
that?
for 20 minutes. And then Joe will be he'll like, about what you said a second ago. Like, what the fuck?
yeah.
That was 12 and a half minutes ago, Joe.
I don't know how he
Remember that.
maneuvers 3-hour podcasts because I have this internal clock where about like hour 30, usually the conversation, I'll be like maxed out.
Mm.
Maybe I just haven't
Really?
unlocked that yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
But on with the mics on, but of course without
I
the
was
mics
gonna
on,
say.
it goes a little bit further.
Mm.
But
Hmm.
Joe, I've noticed his episodes. It's like up, plateau, down a weird rabbit hole, and then it's back up right at the
Right.
3rd hour mark,
Yeah,
and they're talking about something crazy.
Right, there's
again.
some fire at the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is almost the best part of the conversation.
Yes.
Second best is like 2.5 hours ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would like to kind of jump in and get
Sure.
a quick overview before we, jump into a bunch of awesome random topics. But so Ancestral Fuel I have right here,
Yes, you
protein powder, and you have a whole story behind it that you told me at the coffee shop once. And honestly, it's what's funny is it's the perfect marketing ploy, but what's great is it's not
do.
a marketing ploy.
Yeah, it's just
so,
my life.
Yeah. I'd love
Yeah.
for you to introduce that.
Yeah, well, there's an even deeper version of the story that we could talk about maybe later or another day that starts much, much earlier on and much, much deeper when it comes to my soul's journey, I would say, and sort of the spiritual journey that is the overarching, like, I don't know,
Backbone to it.
Yeah, of everything that I've ever done or experienced, but specifically with Ancient Strength and Ancestral Fuel. Like, you've probably seen the video on our landing page, right? Like, I was sick for a long time, my whole life, really. Like, I was pretty much born throwing up. Like, I remember literally my earliest memories are being in the car seat throwing up. Like, how fucked up is that,
That's
right?
fucked
I remember
up, yeah.
being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, every age as a little kid throwing up all the time. And I'm not talking about like once a month even. I'm talking like twice a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week. Sometimes it was every day. And it would go in these like weird phases where sometimes I'd be throwing up multiple times a day, and then other times I wouldn't throw up for 2 months. And it was like totally unexplained. And this is the early 90s, and my parents were not educated when it comes to nutrition or health or what should we do with this kid who's throwing up. It was pretty much like, hey, you should throw up less. Like, just hold it in, you know?
Drink some water.
Drink some water and get some fresh air. You'll be okay. And like, for the most part, that was sort of just how I was trained to deal with it. And so I never did anything really about it. And it just never really went away. And as I got older and older, just more and more symptoms started to show up. First, it was like anxiety and depression. And then it was like headaches. And then it was really bad allergies. And I always had colds. And it seemed like every time a cold came in town, you know, it's like, oh, it's going around. You hear it's going around. Like, I always got it.
Dang.
You know what I mean? Like, everything
couple
that was
people,
always going around, I always had it. And I never really understood why. And it's one of those things when I talked about like the spiritual aspect of it, it's like, I realize now that I was believing that I was sick because everybody around me was telling me that I was sick. So that belief was then creating these emotions that were attached to it, and vice versa. And the emotions were feeding the beliefs, and both those things were feeding thoughts that were then driving my behavior that was giving me my results. And of course, as a kid, like, you don't really know any of that. You just know, like, oh, I'm a sick kid, right? Like,
you can't break it down into like a whole feedback.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's some like little miniature Albert Einstein out there who can, but I sure as hell couldn't. So I just was like, oh, I'm just one of those people that's sick. And like the deeper layer of this is, you know, I grew up a Jehovah's Witness. And so for anyone listening who doesn't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses, like, we believed that the world was ending and that this whole world didn't really matter except for whether or not you were on the right side of history. And when, you know, Judgment Day comes, you better be on the right side or you're pretty much screwed. So for me, I never really focused on being healthy because I looked at the world around me and I was like, oh, it's a broken world. I'm imperfect. It just is what it is. Like, this is my lot in life. This is my weight to bear, whatever. And so I never really made any efforts to get better. And it actually just got worse and worse and worse. And by the time I was in my 20s, like, I had my appendix removed because it had ruptured, and I was on every Chinese.
It did rupture?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a medical emergency.
Yeah. And I was like in the hallway in the hospital all night, like, my appendix. And they were like, we'll get to you in the morning. We don't have any surgeons here. And I'm like, but my appendix, and, you know, so that was a whole big thing. And there was like 6 months or more of recovery from that, even though it was like laparoscopic. It was still, I was super jacked up. I was on every Chinese herb you could imagine. And then I was on tons of like really heavy, like opiate type painkillers. And so that really fucked up my system even worse once that happened. And so I just went like even more downhill from there. And obviously stress and anxiety and all these things, like I was in the startup world, and shortly after that, like I left that religion that I grew up in and lost everybody that I knew. And so that level of existential stress makes things worse. And for anybody that knows anything about your gut, like stress and anxiety, like totally disrupt your gut microbiota completely. So all of these things just made my condition worse and worse and worse. And 3 years ago, I was like completely rock bottom. I was like literally like 40 pounds lighter than I am today, which for me, I'm not a big guy, so 40 pounds is a fucking lot of weight. Yeah. And I was like, literally, I would drink like sips of water and my stomach would swell up like a balloon. Like nothing that I would eat, I could hold down. And I had already at this point tried tons of different doctors, and I tried lots of medications, and I went vegan, I went gluten-free. I did all these different things, and I couldn't find anything that brought me any kind of relief at all. And like, I remember one night I was like literally, it's funny, you're talking about it being like the perfect hook or the perfect like marketing ploy, but it was like, it was real. I was literally like on my hands and knees. My son was like 3 months old. I had just had my first kid. 2 months before he was born, I had left my dream job where I was making great money at a super fast growing startup that I was super early stage at. And I left because I was unfulfilled. I wanted to do something better. I wanted to do something more. And I was getting sicker and sicker. And it was like all these things were pulling me in all these different directions. And I knew I had to go figure myself out. And I only got worse from there. And then my son was born. And literally it was like the most existential, terrible, imaginable feeling. And I was just on my hands and knees begging God, the universe, creator, source, whoever the fuck. I was like, if somebody is out there, like I need to figure this. I need to figure this out. And literally, like maybe 2 weeks later, I went to go see a holistic physician, which wasn't the first one that I had seen, but he was the first one that told me the name Weston A. Price. And Weston Price was actually a dentist who became like this researcher who traveled the world, living with all these different like primitive peoples, like the Australian Aborigines and many, many peoples all around the world, and studied how they ate because he was curious why it was that they had really nice teeth.
Yeah.
That was like his original thing. It was like, why are their teeth so dope? Like they have wide faces and like they don't need to have their wisdom teeth removed. Like, what is all of that?
Teeth cleaning every 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Like
floss your teeth every night.
They don't have fluoride, but they seem to be fine. Like he was like, he wanted to know why. So he went and researched that. And like, long story short, over many, many years of research and living with these peoples, he wrote this book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It's like super thick, like research book, where he outlined like the diets of these peoples and how it was their diet that led to their lack of genetic defects and, abnormalities and sickness and illness and chronic disease and also gut issues. Like gut was a big part of it. And in Western culture and like modernized people, like gut issues are becoming more and more and more prevalent, as is everything else that's shitty, like depression, anxiety, suicide, obesity,
smaller taints,
lower testosterone, all of it.
Yeah.
And it all is linked back to what we put inside our bodies. So once I found all this out, I just went super deep down the rabbit hole, and I discovered something called the GAPS diet, or gut and psychology syndrome diet, or physiology syndrome diet. It works for both, and it's basically this like gut healing protocol that you start with literally nothing but bone broth and like stewed meats and egg. And you literally eat these foods like, and some sauerkraut juice. Sometimes you can't even like handle the sauerkraut juice. Like literally the juice of sauerkraut, right? Like that's how fucked up your gut is if you're on GAPS diet. It's like you can't even eat sauerkraut. You have to just like drink a teaspoon of the juice.
Is GAPS an acronym or?
Yeah, gut and psychology syndrome, or gut and physiology. It like works for both. And there's 2 books that outline like the details of the GAPS diet. I think it's Dr. Natasha McBride, that wrote those books. And they're incredible. I own them both. And so I read this book. I bought everything I could on GAPS, and it was this holistic physician that was like, you need to go on this GAPS diet and you need to heal yourself from the inside out, because all these other things that are happening, these are just symptoms, but it's not like the root cause is because you have gut dysbiosis. Like your gut lining is totally fucked. It's very leaky. It's permeable. So there's undigested food that's making it into your bloodstream that's then causing all of this immune response. And then also your gut microbiota is totally off. So you've got too many of the bad bacteria and not enough of the good bacteria. And because of that, you have all these issues actually breaking down the foods and digesting them. So when you eat stuff, your body's going, we don't know what the fuck to do with that. And they just spit it back up. I mean, that's an oversimplification, but that's basically what's happening.
And doctors / interprofessional, maybe like dietitians, do they have a diagnosis for like what we call like leaky gut and what you're talking about? Do they have a diagnosis for this yet?
So leaky gut is more of like it's like a broad stroke term to describe like a lot of these. Primarily, it's like the permeability of your gut lining. So like, you hear people talk about like gluten causing these inflammation issues that cause the gut lining to kind of tear apart because it gets inflamed. And then obviously you're not absorbing the nutrients, and so it's not getting rebuilt. So it just keeps going worse and worse and gets worse and worse. But really, there's like the blanket terms of like leaky gut, and there's like gut dysbiosis, which literally just means like dysbiosis. So it's like not in order, but that's a blanket term that could mean a bunch of different things. And for me, at this point, I had ulcers, I had IBS, I had a C. difficile infection, which is like a very serious specific bacterial infection. I also had SIBO, which is like a more general small intestinal bacterial overgrowth infection. So I had that as well. I had some candida too, believe it or not. So that's like another one of those like more specific terms that people might refer to when it comes to their gut issues.
Health, yeah.
Right. But there's all of them, and they all fall into that. So I had literally all of these at the same time. and like 6 or 7 months on this super bare bones like GAPS diet with very, very little variance. Like, I mean, maybe 5% variance. And
Target cookie
say that again.
Target cookie every once in a while, maybe, or
no, like maybe like rice.
Okay, some white
Some
rice,
potatoes.
Okay.
Maybe a little red wine.
normal, healthy, quote unquote healthy
and
stuff.
even certain things I still couldn't, like even relatively healthy foods I couldn't consume at all, without some kind of major reaction, whether it was like an autoimmune reaction, like my sinuses swelling up and I would start dripping or sneezing like crazy, or it's like I would literally just get a flu like that.
Yeah.
It was that bad. But when you are in a state where like your gut is ripped open and you're also not able to digest food, so many things can happen, right? Because
Compromised.
right, anything that goes wrong can affect anything else, and that's like I had tennis elbow that wouldn't go away for 4 years.
Oh my! That's worse than the gut.
At the same time, I didn't even mention that.
Oh,
but like,
man.
and I was going to physical therapy. I was taking like corticosteroids. Like I had probably 3 or 4 shots in my elbow, and like literally nothing was making it go away.
Wow.
And and that wasn't the only place that I was having. I had chronic inflammation in pretty much all of my joints, but I had this really bad like recurrent tennis elbow and I was doing the bands. I was going to physical therapy. Nothing was helping. But that's because it's also related to the gut, because since my bloodstream had all this bullshit in it, it was causing all these inflammatory and immune responses. And so the areas of my arm that would normally be healing were just stuck unhealed. And they had no way to heal because they were in an inflamed state across the whole body, right? And your body is like, it's always looking for balance. So if it sees that like your gut is completely messed up, it's not going to give a shit about like what's going on with your tennis elbow.
Yes.
It's like, we're pretty much dying. We don't have time for tennis elbow.
With like older individuals, as soon as they have like a fall, or I'm sure, everybody hears about this, hey, grandma fell, she's not doing too well. Like they break a hip and it's like they're compromised from there on out. There's so many infection. There's so many other things that happen when they go to surgery. Post-op, there's so many things that you have to regulate. Like, are they on the right cardiac or all liquid diet? There's, so you did this GAPS diet. How long did you have to do that for? Just bone broth? And what?
It was
what
about
were the
6
other
months.
things?
Yeah. And it was like, at first it was literally just homemade bone broth. And that was like 3 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
And then I could start introducing like some stewed meats,
Okay.
and then some egg yolk, and then eventually like a whole egg, and then the sauerkraut juice. Like, so they have you do something like, if you read the books on GAPS, like you can go online and find them.
All the info.
There's like something also called the GAPS intro. So it's like GAPS is a fuller diet that's really like, you don't miss out on anything with a full GAPS diet, because you can still have, ice cream, but it just has to be homemade with certain types of ingredients. You can still have pizza, but it's got to be homemade with certain types of ingredients. Like, and there's thousands of recipes that are GAPS compatible, right? And really GAPS is like a higher fat, lower carbohydrate, moderate protein. It's not quite keto, but it has like a lot of principles of keto and paleo, but it's a lot about removing foods that harm your gut and then giving yourself as much of the foods as possible that actually support your gut health, right? Like that's pretty much the GAPS protocol. But the GAPS intro is a lot worse. So for me, it was like 6 months of this, like this multi-phase approach of the GAPS intro diet before I was healed. And when it was like, holy shit. Like I can eat cake. I can have some ice cream. Like I could do a few shots and I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
Like this is crazy. And I hadn't felt like that in like 5 years, and really I had always been sick to my stomach at my whole life. So this was like really the first time that like rampant, almost everyday nausea, like wasn't a thing for me. And that was crazy.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know how bad something is until it goes away.
That's true.
And then you're like, holy
ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Ex-girlfriends.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It was like all ex-girlfriends disappearing at the same time. Holy shit. Being single is great.
Yeah.
It was pretty much like that. But like from the inside out.
So the GAPS diet was the actual physical thing, but you brought up that, you had the psychological part of, hey, I'm a sick person.
Yeah.
How do you maneuver, and how did that help you along to maintain this healthy gut and healthy lifestyle now?
So, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that is actually something that didn't come till much later.
Mm-hmm.
Like the physical healing came first. and it came like 90% of the way. But there was always this like the last 10% that I would still have to deal with, whether it was like the gut symptoms or cold symptoms or whatever it was. And it took me like another 2 years to realize, like, I think about this all the time. Like, I'm always thinking about how I'm happy that I'm not sick anymore, but worried that I'll get sick again. And every time I'd find myself worrying more about being sick, I would get more sick. Mm-hmm. And that was when I started to connect those dots and law of attraction and all of that. And I believe in that. And I practice that way of thinking, like your emotions, like drive your thoughts, which drive your behavior, which drive your results, right? It's that loop. But I hadn't quite put it together that there was this like fundamental identity that I had as an unwell person. So it took me a lot longer to figure that one out. But what did that for me was one time and effort and seeing results helped to bolster this idea of like, okay, maybe I'm not as sick as I thought I was, or maybe I don't have to be as sick as I used to be. It's probably a more accurate way to say it. Yeah. And considering the stories of other people, that was a big thing too. Just watching other people like me be even sicker than I was and be able to be even healthier than I was. I looked at those two things and at first it's like, well, I guess I must just be shitty, right? but over time you hope that you get to a place where you can realize like, no, I'm just not there yet. And I mean, I would say for anybody listening, like that's the takeaway, right? It's like, you may not be there yet, but that doesn't mean you can't get there.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't get there.
Right. I like to, whenever I kind of don't have motivation or I'm losing a sense of discipline, I always try to kind of have this fighter's mentality where it's like, maybe I feel like I can't get there, but like, why not try? Why not keep swinging, man?
Why not die trying?
Exactly. Like if I'm already on the ground getting stabbed, I'll try to pull the knife out. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But
and that's always been my mentality. So it's like, even if this doesn't work, I have to fucking try.
Yeah. My dad doesn't eat tomatoes. Are tomatoes bad for gut health?
My brother doesn't either.
I would say, I'm not the foremost expert on gut health by any means.
Search that up while we're.
But I would say that tomatoes, they're obviously very acidic, so anything that's high in acid can harm your gut depending on where you are. But also, acid can be a good thing. Like they used to prescribe me like these acid reducers. Like, oh, you just have acid reflux, you'll be okay. Mm-hmm. Take this pill that helps you make less acid, but that actually makes everything worse. And when I got on GAPS, they were like, go take apple cider vinegar, put more acid in your stomach.
So vice versa, yeah. There's no evidence that eating nightshade veggies.
Yeah, so right, okay, so that's right. Tomatoes are nightshade, right? So nightshades, there are a lot of compounds, especially in the skin of nightshades, that can be problematic for gut health. But
everything in moderation, right?
That's the thing.
Don't eat 100 tomatoes.
So my take on everything, like you'll see guys online like Liver King. I'm sure you've seen Liver King, or like,
I've seen him,
or like Carnivore MD. Or like Sean Baker, or even like Michaela Peterson, like the proponent of the Lion Diet, right? There are more extreme and less extreme approaches that you can take. And some people would argue like a lot of these people are just, they're doing it for the marketing, right? Like, because it sells their products.
Liver King with the crazy TikTok videos.
Right. But then he sells nose to tail supplements. So it's like, okay, this is a brand, but I'm not really that person. Like I at the end of the day, like I'm an altruistic hedonist. So I want to enjoy my life too. So if I can't go to Capitol Grill and have a creme brulee for dessert with my wife on date nights, like I'm not really interested.
Right.
That's just me. So that means that if I want to survive, I have to be perfect in the areas of my life where maybe it matters less, so that I can buy myself the space to do what I actually want. Right. So, are seed oils bad for you? Absolutely. Like, should you eat out? Probably never, right? Like, these are things that are over time and with enough quantity are going to kill you. Right? But
it's pretty scary to think about.
Yeah, but you're gonna die anyways.
Right.
And so you have to walk that balance too. You have to find that balance between like what is reasonable and what is healthful. Mm-hmm. And some people are willing to go further than others, and some people have better genetic disposition and better environment and better beliefs and all these things that allow them to handle even more. So really it's up for debate, but everybody should find, I think, the balance that makes the most sense for them.
I mean, what's crazy is life, like 100 years ago, the roaring 20s, I mean, life expectancy was worldwide drastically different than what it is now. I mean, when you were 35 back then, it was like
Do you know? Can we pull it up?
Yeah, look up the exact life expectancy. But I mean, there's a cap for every species, and we're just organized.
So you're not trying to live forever?
You know what? If Elon Musk, gives me the right PowerPoint, I might jump on that.
You would put a Neuralink in your head?
I don't know if I could do it.
I would not.
I don't know if I could do it, man.
I'm very anti-transhumanism. So,
but what if you're like 100% or 150% stronger and faster?
I don't know.
What if you could get it removed if you didn't like it?
Yeah, but what if the person who does the removal decides to stop doing removals?
True. Yeah, there's a lot.
What if your application for removal doesn't get approved?
Yes, yeah.
Because Joe Biden has to sign off on it. He doesn't like your Facebook page. I don't know.
Right. My Tesla application got denied. They said my credit wasn't good enough. I really wanted a Tesla.
That's tragic.
I was how old was I? I was 20. That's 20.
Funny.
20-year-old just trying to get a $35,000 Model 3.
Right.
Nice.
Which isn't even that expensive of a car.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty reasonable. It's like you can buy a Honda Accord for $35,000.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
They'll approve you as
the top trim.
They'll approve you as a barista in Starbucks.
53.6 years. Which
and it's got to be. It's
short.
like it's got to be what, mid-70s now, right? I think it's lower for men than it is for women.
Yeah, it says it down below. Today's average.
Oh, there we go.
78.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
not bad,
nuts,
right?
bro? That's insane.
What is that, like
That's not
40%? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, will it, in 30-20 or not 21-20, will it be 115?
Well, it depends. If we
I
keep
don't know.
eating Beyond Meat and Gardein, then probably not.
Yeah.
But if we get back to eating beef liver and marrow and broths, and then still go out for ice cream and cake, maybe.
Yeah.
And you combine that with all the other beautiful things that modern innovation is bringing us, right? And that's what Ancient Strength was about. So to lead back into that, when I founded this company, it was originally because of the protein powder, right? I got well, and it was cool, I'm gonna go get jacked now.
Yeah.
That was my goal. And I bought every animal-based protein powder. I knew I didn't want to do dairy because I do drink dairy, but I try to only drink it if it's raw, which that's a whole other conversation. But raw dairy.
Can you buy that out of the store?
So technically, well, there are some types of raw dairy that you can buy at the store, and some stores where you can buy more raw dairy than others. But raw milk, at least now in the United States, is illegal for human consumption. So you can buy it. You can buy it at the farmer's market. Literally the Winter Garden Farmers Market sells.
It's not for you.
But technically it's for animal. It says for animal consumption only. But the only people who buy it are humans, and the only people who drink it pretty much are humans. Mm-hmm. I also can't really imagine people feeding it to their dogs because it's $30 a gallon. And I'm not even exaggerating. It's literally $30 a gallon. And that's if you don't pay the jar deposit. Otherwise it's $38 a gallon. But so back to the protein, I knew I didn't want to do dairy because there's no such thing as a raw whey, and I didn't even want that. And lactose, and me didn't really behave, especially when it was homogenized and pasteurized. So I didn't want to have a dairy-based protein. So all dairy-based proteins were out. And I knew that I wasn't going to go the plant-based route because they were not rich enough in amino acids. They were harder for me to digest. There were, there's the anti-nutrients that you have to deal with in some of the plant proteins. It just wasn't the right solution for me. And so I knew I wanted an animal-based protein. So I went and I bought all of them. I have a picture on my Instagram of 7 or 8 different proteins that I had. And that wasn't even a quarter of all the ones that I bought. I bought a ton of different proteins. And I tried them all. And I researched them all too, because at this point I was scared of putting stuff in my body, right? Mm-hmm. And so every single protein that I found, there was an issue with it. It was either it had tons of ingredients that I didn't want to put in my body. Like sucralose, for example. Sucralose or Splenda. It's an artificial sweetener. Yep. If you look at the top 10 proteins on Amazon, 7 of them have sucralose in them. And nobody bats an eye. It's a 0-calorie sweetener, so it should be just fine, right? Except multiple studies have shown that it totally throws off your gut flora. It's terrible for your microbiota. It's been shown to kill rats in studies. That's one of the pictures on the Instagram. So I bought all these different proteins, and some that were pure animal-based blends, some that were just pure one type of protein, like that egg protein that's there, that carnivore one that's there.
Jocko.
All of these except for the Jocko have some kind of beef or bone broth in them. The Jocko's the only one that was didn't have that, but it has multiple types of dairy and egg, and I couldn't really digest that one. I had issues with it. So I couldn't find one that I could digest easily. And when I could find one that I digested, it tasted like shit, or it had horrible texture.
That's huge.
Or it was super gritty and didn't mix easily, no solubility, or it was made of a level of quality of ingredient that I wasn't proud of. I didn't want to put in my body because I would email the supplement company and ask like, where are you sourcing this? Where are you sourcing that? Like, what is this? What is that? So like I couldn't find a protein that like ticked all the boxes. Around that same time, I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. And I knew I wanted to start something like from scratch. I wanted to do a new venture. And I had like multiple ideas that I could pursue. And the reason why I chose pursuing creating an animal-based protein complex was literally because I wanted one and I couldn't find it.
You wanted to get jacked, man.
And I couldn't find it. So I was like, I'm just going to make it myself. And that was like August of 2020. And now here we are, April of 2022. And we are, 17 days away from launching our first product. So that was really how Ancestral Field came about. And it's been a crazy journey filled with tons of obstacles to get it out the door, but we're here. You
are a well-versed, I've only had the pleasure of having a couple conversations with you. That's why I was super excited about this podcast is you're a super multiversed, well-versed guy. So this is a personal question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Where do you gain the knowledge that you get? You're a big reader?
Yeah.
Is that most of it? Is that all of it?
Bookshelf, bro. It's nuts.
Huge bookshelf?
Well, what's funny is when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, I had like 4 times as many books as what you see in my house, Kenny.
That's insane.
And when we moved, I was just like, I've read a lot of these, so I'm going to cull them. I'm going to get rid of them, kind of like start fresh. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much books. Like growing up, so back to like the whole witness thing. Mm-hmm. They follow and this isn't like anything against them. I love my family that are still witnesses. I love almost everybody who is a witness. I think the vast majority of people in that religion are super well-meaning. I think they have great ideas. I always say that if everyone in the world was a Jehovah's Witness, the world would be paradise. Because like if everybody lived by the way that they say to live, like yes, like there wouldn't be any gay people, but there also wouldn't be any murders. So I'm not saying that it's perfect, but like it would be a society that worked.
Yes.
But the doctrines and the beliefs, I just don't agree with them. I just don't think that they're right. But growing up as a witness, I wasn't really given access to information that didn't fit the bill. So like, for example, they use their own translation of the Bible in all of the meetings, which are multiple times a week. They use all of their own publications that come from their version of the Bible. And, you spend so much of your time studying their books and kind of, you would think of them as your books, right? Like our books.
You're right.
That your whole life is really about that. And my family was very strong in the religion. And so because of that, like we were very good Jehovah's Witnesses, or at least we strived to be good Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Yes. We tried our best. And so that meant like all of my effort was always put into studying theocratic or like theology-based books. But from a very young age, I was taught to read. And I was doing public speaking in front of the congregation at like 6 years old, like reading, excerpts from the Bible and giving like an introduction and conclusion and, knocking on doors from a very young age. Like at one point I was what they call a regular pioneer. So I was like literally preaching 70 hours. I had like a commitment to preach 70 hours per month that I would, preach to people about the gospel, right? Or They wouldn't call it the gospel, but about the Bible and, the Bible's message. And so I was taught to like be a studier and to read and highlight and be able to answer questions and to be able to think. But the interesting thing was like they didn't teach me critical thinking. They just taught me the cyclical thinking that worked within like the doctrinal framework. Mm-hmm. So I got good at study, but I wasn't given access to like any outside information or worldview. Like I was told not to study other religions. Like, there's lots of movies and TV shows and books that they tell you not to read. And, you can't be reading about crystals. You can't be reading about law of attraction. You can't watch
Harry Potter.
Right. Like I never saw the Harry Potter movies until I was like 25 years old.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's by choice.
Yeah, I was never.
To be honest, I don't think I would have watched them anyways.
I enjoyed
they were
the
good.
series.
Don't get me wrong.
Hermione.
Don't get me wrong.
Childhood crush. So I had to say that.
I mean, I saw those movies for the first time when I was 25 and she was like 8. So I just totally missed that. I don't even know what that feels like.
Sorry, you missed out.
Yeah, I just missed out. But the truth is I probably wouldn't have watched the movies anyways, but I was motivated to watch them when I was 25 because I can watch Harry Potter now,
Yeah.
But because of that, like when I left, I had no worldview at all. And so I was super existentially depressed. I had no idea what the hell was going on in the entire universe. Like nothing made any sense to me because my whole world got flipped upside down. So when that happened, I did the only thing that I knew how to do, which was read. So I just started getting every book that I could get my hands on and just started reading it. For me, it started actually with like philosophy, reading Alan Watts, and then eventually getting into Jordan Peterson. And yeah, and those were like Alan Watts, like my son's name is Montgomery and his middle name is Alan after Alan Watts. Like that's how, you know, big of a deal, like reading Alan Watts's like words were and listening and watching his lectures. Like they really like, they guided me through this like super dark period of my life. But once I kind of got through that, started to develop my own worldview by reading philosophy. And it wasn't just him, it was, you know, Marcus Aurelius and Socrates and modern philosophers too, like anything I get my hands on just to try to form some kind of worldview. Right. Then I started to think about like, how can I improve my life? And so I started reading self-help and personal development. And eventually that led to like reading about religion and spirituality. And of course, as I got sicker and sicker, I started to read a ton on nutrition and health and gut health and brain health and all these other things. And so it's just been, it's a really long way to answer the question, but it was a good opportunity to talk about like why I became that way. But it's just reading stuff.
To go back on like the worldview, so I've been expanding my vocabulary a little bit.
Kenny was telling me
doing a podcast.
When you said demise, I was flabbergasted, bro.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was like, demise. That's such a cool word.
You're becoming quite the sesquipedalian.
Hey, yo.
Not there yet, but I will be one day.
A sesquipedalian is somebody who uses big words.
Oh, okay.
The definition is probably a little bit more articulate than that, but that's basically what it is.
Got you.
Which is hilarious because it's a really big word.
I said the word in front of my entire nursing class. I said paradigm.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Paradigm.
Oh.
Yeah. So everybody's like paradigm. That's what they said. Don't know that. What's that mean? It's paradigm is what I'm trying to say, but you know it's spelled.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spell it live on air, so I'm going to avoid spelling on air, but I thought it said paradigm, so yeah.
Paradigm. I'm actually going to steal that one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I like it more than paradigm.
Throw it out there. I'm sure
fun.
a lot of people wouldn't be able to correct it either. They'd be like, don't know what you're going for.
Yeah. I didn't even know that that's the word you were trying to say. I just assumed
Right.
it was like a different word that I didn't know.
I'm gonna do that a lot. Throw out words that people will have no idea to match to a different word.
Yeah, just put a different emphasis on a different syllable.
Yeah.
Whoa.
What? That's from a show.
Yeah, I can't remember where it is, but I didn't make that
it's
up.
A good liner.
I can't.
Dang.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. So you don't watch Netflix. That's
No.
a gem you dropped at the beginning. What do you watch anything?
I mean,
are you kind of like anti like? Or you watch YouTube? Or
yeah.
What do you dig into?
A lot of YouTube. Well, not a lot, but if I find something that I want to watch, it's usually on YouTube.
YouTube is my favorite. Like,
yeah.
If I'm watching something, it's most likely going to be YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, and usually, at least for me, I don't typically find that much stuff by searching on YouTube. I'll search on like Brave search or even like DuckDuckGo, although DuckDuckGo is kind of bullshit these days. But because
why is that?
They just totally sold out. I mean, there's tons of articles about it online, but they just totally sold out to Big Brother.
Disney just bought them or something.
Imagine.
Oh my god,
that would be crazy.
Disney's woke.
DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest goals is to dethrone the Walt Disney Company, but maybe that's for another podcast episode.
The way they're moving, baby.
Yeah, you know what's really funny? When I started coming up with this idea that I wanted to like dethrone Disney as like the king of theme parks, because that's like one of my biggest dreams is to have a theme park resort that makes. Cool. I want to make Disney look like SeaWorld is my goal. Sorry, SeaWorld, I do like you, but you're not Disney. But Disney is one of those companies that I've always like been a huge fan of. And when I came up with this idea of like, I want to build this amazing media company that tells incredible stories, that builds amazing things, and ultimately creates like a theme park, it was before the whole woke Disney implosion. And now all that's happening, I'm looking at it and I'm like, the lane is opening, ladies and gentlemen. Like the door is creaking open little by little.
Right.
So I'm not complaining.
They're just tossing their multi-million-dollar balls all around everybody's.
Yeah. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. I was going to dig into something, but I'm going to avoid that.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Man.
You could just cut this.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's too ratty.
Yeah. And if you're watching right now and you see it kind of like skip a beat, then you know what happened.
Yeah. Sorry. You missed the juice.
Yeah. Recently with the quote unquote don't say gay bill, how it's completely misinterpreted, and at least from my point of view, it's misinterpreted.
I agree.
And Disney just, how are you that big of a company and you just avoid reading the literature and just deciding to jump on whatever hashtag is floating around that means you're on the good side, you know?
Well, there's two ways you can look at it. You can go, wow, is Disney really that incompetent? Is it really going to be that easy to overthrow them?
Yeah.
Or
Or
you could think to yourself that maybe they know that the content of the bill isn't as bad as it is, but they and their other actors that play their roles in the game that they're all playing have no choice but to push the narrative that their side pushes, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. It's like Disney is Disney, and they have supplanted themselves on one side of like modern civilization's cultural issues. And it's really hard at this point. I think it will be very hard for them to go back. But what's interesting is if you look at like who their customers are, it's like all the people that they're starting to alienate.
it's true.
Their core customers, like the Magic Kingdom goers.
Yeah.
You know, and the Magic Kingdom goers are not necessarily the same people who watch all the Marvel movies on, you know, Disney Plus. Like those are slightly different demographics. Like those people are more like guys like you and I, right?
Yeah.
Although we're not even really those people either, but
Right.
for the most part, it would be those people.
Well, I think we're more, I mean, at least I can speak for myself. I'm just, you know, I'm in the middle, man. If you have a good argument, okay, you changed
Yeah.
my mind.
An optimistic
can't-
centrist is what I call
I
myself.
like that. You know,
Optimistic.
I think it's
centrist.
funny. I'm going to bring up Joe Rogan again. People are going to think I'm deriding Joe Rogan, but it's so funny when he's like,
Is that a bad thing?
he says, I'm socially liberal, but
Fiscally conservative?
fiscally, yeah.
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 Which is like classic libertarian,
Right.
but that like doesn't exist anymore.
You know, I can't see personally, at least the way it's been presented to me in school, like any libertarian society, at least in America, succeeding at right now for sure. But who ran for the Libertarian Party in the most recent election? Not
Bernie
Joe
Sanders?
Jorgensen. No, that's socialist.
Are you talking about the
Was
same
it?
guy who was the governor, I think, in New Mexico for some time that was libertarian? Talking
Was
about that guy?
Joe? Was it Joe Jorgensen?
That name is familiar,
Anyways.
but I don't know.
Gotcha. I just know a bunch of people who just voted for him because they were like, oh, I don't want to vote, but they're like, I feel like I need to vote, so just throw
Yeah.
their vote
It was
away.
him. It was him.
Gotcha.
Joe Jorgensen?
Yeah.
Jorgensen? Okay.
When you lead, what type of leader are you? Laissez-faire, democratic? What kind of leader are you when it comes to like a team-based exercise, maybe? Authoritarian. Get in line, Putin. But
Kidding. Maybe you'll have to cut that. I don't know.
we maybe blur it. I don't know.
I couldn't care less.
Yeah. me neither.
If people can't take a joke, they can't take a joke.
Yeah.
Because I'm the opposite of that. I really believe in merit. So for me, it's like it's always a meritocracy. Like
Okay.
the cream should always rise to the top, and people will balk at that and say that makes other people disadvantaged. But in the context of like an organization, it's not your job to take care of people who belong at the bottom of the totem pole within an organization. Like it's your job to succeed as an organization. So the people who do the best should get the most. I mean, that's the first thing. It's like merit should drive everything. And then autonomy is the second thing, right? Like people should have the freedom to do what they do without being micromanaged. And that goes back to hiring people that belong in a meritocracy, right? Like if you hire people who have really strong skill sets, then you shouldn't have to micromanage them. In fact, if you do, they'll just leave anyways, and you'll end up with a bunch of yes men who you need to create SOPs that have 1,000,001 steps to them because they can't do anything that doesn't have a step or a checklist attached to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's important to suck. I think you got to suck to not want to suck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you don't have all the merit in the world, or maybe rather than like trying to victimize yourself, of course there's things that are like traumatic and kind of out of your control, and, you know, people are born paralyzed, like things like that happen. But
Yeah.
a lot of things in life is relative, and
Of course.
you know, it's your perspective.
I took my cup, which wasn't a great one necessarily.
Right.
It was great in certain ways, right? Like I wasn't born in Sudan or Yemen where they're blowing up brown people all the time. Like that's a really big blessing, right? But I was born with my set of difficulties. And the thing about victimhood is no matter where you are on the spectrum, you can make yourself a victim if you want to.
Yeah.
And no matter where you are on the spectrum, you can also refuse to make yourself a victim if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that that's true, then sitting there and being like, well, easy for him to say he has both of his arms. Like, well, that's true, right? But like, what are you going to do about that? Like, are you just going to, is that where the conversation ends?
Yeah.
Like, do you end it at like, well, da 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 da, so I'm da 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 da, and then you just give up? Like, that doesn't serve anybody. And I think that's where like a lot of like people that are on like the super far left, at least in the culture like that we see merging, is like, that's a piece that I think that they miss. Is like, nobody is saying that it doesn't suck to have things in your life that suck. And if people are saying that, like, you shouldn't listen to them. But what I think people are saying is like, things suck, but what are you going to do about it? And looking to the government to solve all of your problems for you is, in my opinion, this is just my personal opinion, but that's like the worst way to expect anything to get done.
Right.
Like, I was telling my cousin the other day, why don't we know where our taxes go? Right? If anybody who's listening to this like has political aspirations, you can steal this. If you don't, I'm going to steal it for myself when I run for some kind of office someday, which I plan to.
Okay.
Which is, why in the world are our taxes not completely transparent? Why don't I know where every dollar goes? And not only that, but why isn't there a percentage of my taxes that goes to, you know, utility-based services that everybody has to pay into, and another percentage of my taxes where I can choose where I want that money to go and the things that I want it to support to keep society running? Can you imagine if you know, the 30% of every dollar that you make that gets taken away? Imagine if the government sent you a report every month of every dollar that they spent of your dollars and where those dollars went. And don't tell me that they can't track it, because they absolutely can. Like, there's more than enough technology available to track it, right?
Yeah.
And then imagine if every year you had an option to choose where you wanted your taxes to go. So if you care more about education or children, you could choose to have more of your taxes support the public services that support children or educational services. If you care more about mental health or homelessness or, you know, underprivileged youths in, you know, bad communities, right? Whatever it is, like, you can focus your tax dollars where you want them to go. Like, imagine. It'd be amazing.
That would be beautiful.
I wouldn't complain about paying taxes if I actually felt like where they were going was somewhere useful.
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time with anything healthcare, they wouldn't show you the receipt or the price of the actual operation you're getting. They would just bill your insurance. And so,
Wild.
I mean, it's just recently that we actually get to see the number itself. I'm like, hey, I'm seeing the doctor today and you're doing something to my foot. Like, now I actually have the right to see how much it is.
Isn't that wild?
You know? Yeah.
Absolutely
crazy.
wild. So for me, like, back to the victimhood thing, like, I just don't trust that the government is going to solve any of my problems. Like, look at anything that the government has ever done, and have they really done a very good job at it? And the answer is like universally no.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you looking to the government to solve society's problems rather than looking to yourself, right? Like, my good friend Ryan Moran, who runs capitalism.com and the Capitalism Fund, which is actually the fund that invested in Ancient Strength, his like whole tagline is "Be the change." So he believes that like entrepreneurs are here to change the world. That like what we do as entrepreneurs is we solve the world's problems and we package them up in a way that is compelling so that people can access things that they couldn't access before. And if you do that in mass, there's all these problems that get solved in the world.
That makes a lot of sense, because the word entrepreneurship has always been like a word that's like so tossed around. That's a really good way to like sum up. Yeah.
Right. Like, and sure, there's nasty capitalism for sure.
Agreed.
But that's not a function of capitalism itself. That's a function of the people who are running a capitalistic organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a capitalist. 100% I'm a capitalist. But I'm an altruistic capitalist. So for me, yes, I want to make mine, but that has nothing to do with what I want to take from the world. Like, I don't want to take from the world. I want to give to the world, and I want to receive by giving, right?
Yeah.
Like, greed, the greed capitalism is like, I want to receive by taking. I want to receive by giving, and then there's a reciprocal receiving, right? And I think that entrepreneurship is the best way to solve the world's problems, because all entrepreneurship really is at its core is taking, like Ryan always says this, and I love this, it's taking ownership for a problem that you didn't create, right? Like, I didn't create the problem of like messed up guts. I didn't create the problem that I see in the supplement world where everybody is either super ancestral and primal and wants you to live like a caveman, or it's all about peer-reviewed studies. I didn't make that world, right? I simply came in and said like, no, I think we should fuse ancient wisdom with modern innovation. We should do them both. We shouldn't do one or the other. We should find the best of both worlds and then fuel our own evolution that way, right? So I saw that as a problem, and I saw specifically with this product, like there wasn't a protein powder that like supported your gut health and your muscle building goals the way that I wanted it to. So I made it. But that's just one problem. Now imagine if everybody in the world who sees a problem in either their own life, a friend's life, family member's life, imagine if they took that problem and they said, I'm going to take ownership for solving that problem. And they went and they created a solution, and then they offered it to the world in some kind of way that they could consume. What an incredible thing.
There's a number of like paramedics or firefighters or EMTs, first responders who are in the field, and they were like, man, if only there was an easier way to do this or this intubation thing or intubate, or there was an easier way to store this. And then they just, you know, get the right wheels turn to the right people, create a product. And then next thing you know, they're retired and they're like, you know, sitting somewhere in Jamaica with like three, you know, their wife or just three Jamaican ladies.
And
just
why not?
Chilling.
And furthermore, the solutions that they created probably save lives.
Right.
Like a choker. Have you seen those things that you put on your mouth and you pull the food out, and like in case you're choking, and they make them in different sizes?
No way.
Babies and
What's
kids.
it do? So how does that work?
It's like this. It looks like a mask that you put on if you're like getting like laughing gas, but it has like a little tube and like a pump in it. And then like you pull on the pump and it actually like creates a suction. Yeah, there you go.
It sucks it out.
And it sucks like whatever's like. You should get sponsored by DeChoker for this. But I have 3 of them in my house. Go to dechoker.com.
Yeah.
So this thing is really cool, and it saves lives. And I have 3 of them up on my fridge, one for my babies, one for my toddler, and one for myself or my wife or anyone that's at my house. And how cool. Like, I don't worry about my kids choking to death anymore.
Don't have to do the Heimlich or anything. You just
Which sometimes doesn't work. I don't know what the percentage is, but like there's a high percentage of the time it doesn't even fucking work.
I've heard some badass stories of people doing it on themselves.
Yeah, like over
running
a
into
chair
it.
or a table. Yeah, it's crazy. But, you know, what if that doesn't work? You're fucked.
Yeah.
Not anymore. You get a choker.
Yeah.
So it's like whoever invented this thing, I'm sure is wealthy, set for life. But they deserve to be because they solved a real problem in the world. And that, to me, is like what capitalism is supposed to be. That's what entrepreneurship is supposed to be. It's like taking ownership for a problem and then solving it. This whole idea of like just creating these mass conglomerates that eat up market share and then lobby the government so that nobody else can compete and so that they can, and then it gets worse because they just keep making everything cheaper and cheaper and cheaper while fattening the profit margins and then siphoning it all off to the political actors that lobby for them. It's like, it's a whole bunch of bullshit, and I think that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be what capitalism or entrepreneurship is about.
Right. It could be just, it opens the door and the ability to have these passion projects.
Yeah.
Where rather than be like, what can I create that makes me a hell of a ton of, so many, like, listen, I'm 22. I turned 22 yesterday.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Sir.
Yeah. 11 times 2. That's me.
Insert happy birthday music. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you actually insert it?
Little confetti.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Make sure it's not copyrighted.
Bro, I got you. Our list.
Okay. I appreciate it.
You
But
should instead listen to, when you are alone tonight, you should listen to the Happy Birthday song by Andrew Bird.
why? What?
It's just a really good song.
It's good.
Yeah, it's not the Happy Birthday song, but it's
something completely different.
Yeah, but it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not copyrighted, that's the song.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
Heard.
Yeah, but you should go listen to it.
I will. Yeah. But so many kids, you know, my age or younger, dude, how the hell do I make $1 million? It's like, find something you love and then figure out, you know, how it can satiate your thirst for this fiat, like this money, you know? So
yeah.
With this, I mean, this just so happens that it's doing YouTube and like a podcast show. It can be quite lucrative. And so that's exciting. But if this only gives me $200 for 3 years and it gives me $200 every week, you know what, man?
It's $200
I'll live within my means, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I think that people just have it wrong. They think that the money is what they want, but what they really want is the freedom to do what they want. But if you build a business where you're doing what you want, then you don't need all of the money.
Yeah.
So even if the business isn't as lucrative, at least in the beginning days, like I've been working on this for 2 years. I haven't made a penny. And in fact, I've spent a ton of my own money. Ton of my own money. I moved my family from a 4-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom apartment, got rid of my expensive car and bought a beater. I lived off for almost a year off of savings from an exit from a previous startup that I was at. Like I'm all in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't give a shit. because I'm having fun and I love what I'm building. And like I'm getting emails now from people who are signing up to our email list and they're like, oh my God, I'm really excited. I've had gut health issues for years and this is the first protein I've seen that has the things in it that I want. And I'm like, oh my God, there's like people really want this thing. And that's like shocking to me. It's funny. It's like not shocking to anybody else. Like my investors are not shocked. Like our like distribution partners are not shocked. Like my mentor is not shocked. Everyone's like, yeah, this is of course this is going to work. Like why wouldn't it? It's like, it is what it's supposed to be. But for me, for some reason, it's like still shocking to get, I'm sure for you, every time you get a review or a comment where someone's like, dude, this is like one of the best podcasts I've heard.
Yeah.
It probably blows your mind.
Yeah.
At least for me, you know, I just don't expect that. Like I'm not doing it for the accolades. I'm not doing it for the money. Like I can make money doing anything. Like I've been in sales, I've been in marketing, I've been in design. Like I've been in startups for years. Like I could go start or build or join anything that I want, but I don't want to. I want to do this because this actually matters. Whereas like most of the other things that you can find yourself doing just don't matter.
Yeah.
You know?
And I do want to add, this ingredient list is so small.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. I just hate picking up something in the store and say it looks kind of maybe
It's a paragraph
holistic.
long.
Yeah, and it has a nice label and there's like a leaf on it. I'm like, oh, this is like a green
Yeah, it's a
label.
leaf.
Cool.
It's always a fucking leaf, man.
And like a tree of life. And then I turn it over and it's like aspartame, ibuprofen. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just saying random
ibuprofen,
shit.
yeah.
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 And it goes down.
Fame and yeah.
Yeah, and half the entire label is just size 4 font Times New Roman going all the way down.
Yeah.
So this has a total of, quick little count,
6 ingredients.
6 ingredients.
And 3 of those are proteins because our protein blend is 3 different proteins.
Oh, and the Himalayan sea salt on top of the chocolate, that just looks good.
Yup.
That looks good.
It is good. It's really good, actually. Like it tastes so much better than every other chocolate protein I've ever had. And obviously that's because we put a ton of work into making that. And that's really was just balancing all 6 ingredients to get the flavor profile how we wanted it. But the other reason why it tastes so good is because it's real. It's like why would you drink a protein powder that's chocolate flavored when you could drink a protein powder that's flavored with chocolate?
That makes a whole lot of sense.
You know
That's
what I
too
mean?
logical, though. You realize it's 2022, man.
Hey, man, it's the product that I want. I drink it every day. My wife drinks it every day. Like my son's always like, I want chocolate protein shake. You know, he's like,
No way.
literally every day.
Start him early.
He's like,
Good.
He's like asking for us. We give him, a little bit here and there. But I mean, I built it to be good because I built it for me.
Yeah, I don't drink protein anymore because it's never rung my bell. I used to drink, what's the huge brand? Optimum
Nutrition.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
that
one of those,
OWEN.
like a book ingredient list.
Yeah, then there's
Has chapters.
Right,
Table
they're
of
whay
there's a table
protein.
of contents on the ingredient list.
Introduction.
that's why the bucket's so big because half
It's got one of those
empty,
fold-out
man.
labels, like on a
Yeah.
model Michael. Tick, 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 tick.
The 3D pop outs where it folds out and pops out. too.
Yeah, it's funny. You could probably cut this out, Kenny, because at the risk of this sounding like a commercial, which I don't want it to, but this morning I was like actually working on writing like hook points. So obviously like my background is sales and marketing, and so I was thinking about like new hook points that I want to introduce with the product. And one of the ideas that I had was like, why is every protein powder on the market? Why is the ingredient list so long? And I wanted to know, like, I wanted to quantify that. So I literally went on Amazon and I pulled up the top 8 best-selling chocolate protein shakes on Amazon. And I counted up how many ingredients were in each of them. And they have an average of 15 ingredients.
Jeez.
And the least was 12. And the most was 26.
That's so much.
And this is 6?
And this is 6.
Wow.
And 3 of those are proteins, right? The bone broth, the beef protein, and then the egg protein.
Even the flavor, it's funny, even with that many ingredients, the whey OWEN nutrition or protein powder, I would take a drink, I would take 2 swigs, and then I would gag.
Yeah.
And then I would sit there and then
Yeah.
I'd close my nose and I would chug the rest of it. And then the light brown things that get stuck on the bottom would like end up on my lip. And I'd be sitting there like, bro, honestly, I don't even want to get that big
Yeah,
anymore.
right,
Like,
right.
I want to be
This
adequate.
is what getting jacked means.
Yeah.
then. Oh, that's why we brought up Mark SISSON, was because I said I wanted to get jacked, but without compromise. Like Mark SISSON is that's the guy, right? 68 years old, looks like that. Jeez, I mean, come on.
I just love how the conversation gets back around. Mark SISSON!
That guy is hot.
Wow, yeah, he's fit, man. I always say, like, I want to be a silver fox.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I just want to be able to, like, turn heads, but the biggest thing is like when you turn
I just want to be able to turn heads. At least you're honest, Brant Lincoln.
Yeah,
at least
man.
you're honest, man.
Hey, man, you know what? I also want to be a good
remembered.
person. Yeah.
That's my thing.
I want to be in the textbooks, man.
Yeah, that's what being a future ancestor so that's like our as a brand, that's what our community, like we call ourselves future ancestors. We call our community and our consumers future ancestors. Like that term, again, like blending the old with the new. And the idea is like live in such a way that people would bother to remember you. Like if people are going to remember who you are 1,000 years from now, you will have had to do something very impactful and meaningful. And it's funny because I say that sometimes and people are like, well, that's fucking egotistical. You want people to talk about you even when you're not fucking alive anymore. You won't even be here to care. And you just want to know that when you're dead, they're talking about you. And I'm like, yes. Yeah. No, but that's actually not what it is for me. Like for me, what it's like a metaphor, because if 1,000 years after your death, people are still talking about you, it means you did something really impactful.
That I don't understand people judging people based off of them wanting to do something extravagantly amazing, man.
It's so weird to me. It's so and growing up as like a witness, that was a big thing, is like you were taught to blend in. You were taught to like not make waves, to not speak up. And I was always someone that would speak out against any kind of injustice that I saw, or even if it was someone like just getting bullied or cheating at a sport. Like I was the first one to be like, hey, fuck was that? You know, like that was always me. And that got me in a ton of trouble growing up. And so as like I got older, I like repressed that. But then when I left and I came out in the real world, I expected that to be like, cool, I can be myself now. And then I was myself. And then the real world was like, we still hate you. And I was like, oh, well, then in that case, fuck all of you. I'm just going to do what I want. And then I did. And then it's like when you do that, then you actually start to just realize that it's your job to attract people into your life that are like-minded. And we're all different and we all attract different kinds of people. And if you're going to repel the majority of people, right? Like Russell Brunson, who's like a master of direct response marketing, is founder of ClickFunnels. He always says, and I mean, he didn't like come up with this concept, but he talks about in one of his books, like the polarization effect, right? Like you in marketing, you want to be polarizing, right? Like that's actually good. If you look at marketing and you want to dissect it, like you'll find that a lot of marketing is very polarizing, and it's by design, right? But
why is that good? I can't wrap my head around.
Because when you are polarizing, what you're doing is you're saying things that other people want to say but are afraid to say, while at the same time, the same thing you said is something that somebody else is going to hate you for. But as you know, when people hate you, the more that they hate you, the more that they want to know what you're doing. Yeah. And that's why they continue to follow you and look at your stories and comment on your stuff and try to troll you and DM you and talk shit. You wouldn't, like, as small as my social media accounts are, like you would be shocked how many people.
I wouldn't be shocked, brother.
Yeah, I was gonna say you personally wouldn't be shocked, but a lot of people might be shocked at like how many people DM you just to tell you that you're a piece of shit.
Yeah,
and not only that, but like continuously about everything that you say. But then what's funny is on the flip side, I have just as many people that DM me that are like, dude, I love what you're saying. Finally, someone's willing to say this. Like, so that polarization is actually what attracts people to you, because they're going, hey, this guy's like not afraid to say the stuff that I'm afraid to say. And usually it empowers people to say what they want to say, because they're like, hey, I'm not the only one who says this or thinks this. So like, maybe I'm not as crazy as I think that I am. And so polarization has like a lot to do with that. But for me, I'm not contrarian on purpose. That's the thing. Like I grew up a Jehovah's Witness that thought that being gay was a sin and that the world was going to end any moment.
The knock at that door.
Yeah.
And then you open, it's little Mark Cuda just, how you doing today?
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah. I mean, literally that. So for me, like I was always used to like the whole world, like being against the whole world. So it just didn't scare me to say things that people might not like, because as a witness, you're one of 1,000 in the whole world.
Yeah.
Which is not very many.
There's 1,000 Jehovah's Witnesses in the world?
No, sorry. Oh. To clarify, like there's like 8 million witnesses and there's like, 8 billion people. So it's like the number, it's like 1 in 1,000. Okay. Yeah. So like 1 out of every 1,000 people on the planet is a Jehovah's Witness, which is actually kind of a lot when you think about it.
Yeah.
But they're half the size of the Church of Latter-day Saints, like Mormons. So they're not even the biggest one of those kind of smaller sect type Christian religions. But, there's very few people that in real life that are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
So you are used to, from a young age, just being like on the outside. So that never really scared me. Like, what are you going to do? Cancel me? I didn't exist until 5 years ago.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't even on the world scene. Like, I wasn't even playing the game. Do you know how lucky I feel to even just be here playing the game at all?
Sure.
So what people say is just
Gratitude.
what people say is not really that relevant. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be right all the time or that you shouldn't listen to feedback that people give you. It just means that, like, people not liking what you have to say doesn't really have anything to do with
you
what
have
you're
to
saying.
you have to maintain a certain amount of, like, you have to have the ability to turn on maybe like a stoic attitude. You have to be able to tap into the ability to not let like an extrinsic person affect you.
And how do you personally?
So I'm learning.
That?
I'm learning. I'm honestly, I was just about to say rationalization. I do a lot of that. So if I mess up or somebody's judging me on something, I try to rationalize it right away and
like rationalize it away, or
I try to be like, well, the only reason I did that was because I was told this, or the only reason, that happened was because actually I woke up late this morning and I've been having a bad day. Sorry I said that, babe. Yeah. I try to rationalize it.
Yeah.
When really I'm just kind of like excusing myself and then trying to get the other person to excuse me, even though that'll never work, we're weird beings and species. But as long as they say I'm excused, I'll be okay. I can sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm a very stoic person as well, though. I can tap into it, but context matters. But I rationalize a lot.
I think part of it too is, like, for me at least, it's just repetitions. Like everything else, like, you get better over
like
time.
mistakes or like.
Yeah. Like, the more that you put yourself out into the world, the more that you try to do, the more that you're going to fail, the more that people are not going to like you, the more mistakes that you're going to make. Like, just the more you do, the more bad things are going to happen to you. And I don't mean that in like a bad way, but like, with this business, for example, do you know how many obstacles there have been? And I could have given up at any single one of them. And there's new obstacles every single day. And some of them are my mistakes, some of them are other people's mistakes, some of them are just, oversight, whatever. But if you don't keep going, you don't ever get to the point where you've put in enough time and enough volume to where you get better at being able to assess situations and also being able to forgive yourself, right, for making a mistake. Because that's the thing. Ultimately, other people's forgiveness is not going to go very far. Like, eventually, it's like that catches up with you, right? Like, you have to get to a point where you're good with you. Mm-hmm. And that's not easy. But for me, I've been fucking shit up since I was a kid. So I'm like, I don't expect to be good. That's the thing. I don't expect to be good. I just expect that I will try. Mm-hmm. And if I keep trying, then, hey, maybe something like not so shitty happens.
Not too
Mark
Cuda.
Right.
I'd love to quote that. We got to make that a shirt, dude. Can I sell shirts that say that?
You can do whatever you want, bro. I don't give a shit. Yeah.
Awesome.
That doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't be wildly positive and completely focused on what you want. Like, I'm a big believer that you should not focus on what you don't want to attract in your life. Like, law of attraction is like, maybe from a spiritual perspective, people can argue with it, but from like a pragmatic perspective, the law of attraction is truth. And that's that feedback loop of like emotions that drive your thoughts, that drive your behaviors, that drive your results. So for me, I just look at those things and I go like, okay, am I attracting what I want into my life? And if not, I try to analyze which one of those levels am I failing on? And then I just fix it. And it's just a continuous feedback loop of like fixing stuff without any expectation of getting anywhere, but an expectation of doing my best. And then at the same time, I hold these like crazy ambitions that I truly believe that I'm gonna achieve because I'm staying rooted in just the day-to-day feedback loop of like, was I less shitty today than I was yesterday? And if I just stay there while keeping like my long-term gaze on something bigger and broader, I mean, I'm only 29, so my philosophy will change and mature over time. But like where I stand today, that's been the best way for me to move forward without hating myself for all the mistakes that I make, and without it making me decide to play small. Because when you fail, you go, well, maybe we should have ordered less protein, right? Like maybe we should have done this. Maybe we should just do it smaller. Maybe we should wait a while. Maybe we shouldn't make this jump, right? Like you start to second guess yourself. So like that, I just don't do. I just do what I'm going to do. And then if it crashes and burns, it crashes and burns. And then I will just evaluate and fix it later. And so far, that's worked out pretty much okay.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to try this. And by the way, I want to add, don't cut anything out.
Oh, no,
by
nothing.
the way.
No.
Because this...
Are we wrapping up? I hope
no, we're not wrapping up.
Okay.
We're not wrapping up.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add that because as you were speaking about repetition and whatnot, like this, it just reminded me that this podcast is completely uncut and uncensored.
I love that.
And I would love to like stay true to and ground my feet rather than like succumbing to, you know,
man,
other people. So
how many episodes are you in now?
58.
This is 59th.
This is 59.
Nice.
Right. So how episodes
in the time? How long have you been doing the podcast?
A little over a year and a handful of months.
Nice. So in that time, have you talked to me about how your perspective has changed on what you feel comfortable saying?
Yeah, I mean, now that the numbers grew a little bit, I have this insecurity every once in a while, which is good to say it out loud, but like every once in a while I'm like, okay, I probably shouldn't talk on that subject. That's why what sucks is when I was going to bring up the don't say gay bill with Disney, I'm just like,
what are you afraid
of? Just bring up a different talking point? So honestly, bro, I'm not afraid of being canceled or anything like that, but I'm afraid of like the DMs and the death threats over a minor insignificance. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, look, nobody's killed Donald Trump yet,
so I should be good.
So I think you'll be okay.
That's a good way to look at it, though. Like, well, Donald Trump doesn't have a whole lot of security, though.
Yeah. I saw a video.
But if you look at the ratio of your security to your size of influence versus his security and his size of influence, the ratio is probably like pretty even.
Yeah, that's true.
Like he has like, you know, 1 billion eyeballs and you have 2 nice strong fists. So you should be okay.
I saw this video of Donald Trump was like coming out of some sort of gathering. I don't know what it was, but there was a Secret Service guy. And you could tell because he had fake hands and his arms were a little bit longer.
Yeah,
he had pistols or maybe machete, whatever.
That shit's badass.
That was badass.
I want to get rich enough that I have like some guy that has fake hands just walking around next to me, right? Don't you want like a fake hands guy? He's got 2 guns in his real hands. Can you imagine? That's insane.
Don't you just want a guy with some fake hands following you around?
Let's be honest. It's in our wet dreams. A guy with fake hands following us with guns. Just
it's not his actual hands.
Ready to blow away whoever it is that steps in front of us and calls us Orange Man bad.
Guy?
Yep, it's that guy.
I don't see it.
Dude, this guy's head looks fake. Look at his head. Even his head looks fake.
Yeah, his head's fake too. It's just a robot.
This guy is.
So these hands are fake.
Those are fake.
He's got a Neuralink in his head for sure.
So wait.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't
a DJT version.
Why don't you get it?
Like, are his hands moving?
You would have to see the video. The video makes it more. It makes you a little bit more like.
Okay, yeah.
But this isn't the first time I've heard of that kind of stuff. Of like using prosthetics to mask the fact that you have a fucking gun in your hand as a security officer.
But
what's really weird to me is like no one would care if like a security officer was like holding a pistol like. Or had it like a holster like exposed around Donald Trump, like that wouldn't surprise anybody.
Right.
So like, why hide? It's almost like they're like, let's make them think that we don't have security, so that they come and try to fuck him up, and then we'll shoot him in the face.
Then we'll figure it out.
It's almost like he's trying to entice him.
Yeah, those are fake hands, bro.
Yeah, because they are just sitting in place at
one. Well, the video,
funny.
the TikTok
he's like,
video,
come at him! I dare you!
Those hands say a lot, man.
Oh yeah. He was probably ready for the smoke.
On Amazon, you could buy those exact fake hands. So Secret Service is just pulling up on Amazon Prime,
made in China
delivery. Yeah,
protecting us from China, buying shit made in China to protect us from China.
Jeez, man.
China.
The little stickers. I mean, I was in Goodwill the other day, and on even like novelties, it has a little gold sticker on it, made in China. Pretty much everything in there. I'm like,
I feel really like terrible about that, but like I don't like things made in China. And it's like it's for 2 reasons. One, like the Chinese Communist Party is an absolute piece of shit and they have almost total control over everything. And so like economically as you are supporting anything that comes from China, like you are by nature supporting a communist regime. And if you're cool with that, man, like
that's what it is.
If you're a communist, then
but the margins, Mark.
But
I'm gonna make like $400,000 more this year in my CEO position. I just climbed the ladder, Mark.
Right. And that's the thing. Like everybody has a price, right? And like mine is just so high, like that it would never make sense to pay it to me. But for me, like I don't like stuff made in China for that reason, and also they're not driven. Primarily, like not to say that there aren't things made in China that aren't of high quality, but primarily the stuff that you get that says made in China on the back, like it's not made in China because that's where they make the best version of that stuff. Like that's not
About
why.
this.
Yeah, that's like one of
Made
the
in
few
China.
exceptions. But then again,
Right.
they pretty much like own Foxconn, right? Like without Apple, like Foxconn like wouldn't even exist. And if you look at like the labor conditions of the factories there, sure, they're like clean and they have like white floors and like nice lighting so that they can take good pictures, but they employ people like under harsh conditions and have them work too many hours, and they live in like really tight quarters. I mean, have you seen, there's like a documentary I saw years ago about like Walmart and like their Chinese sourcers of like most of the products that they have in Walmart. And they were showing like the way that these people live. Like they live in these like on location, like factory housing that's like basically in the factory building. And they pretty much just like, it's like barracks. Like they stack these people like they're fucking sardines. Like they're just nothing but like animals. And you go to Walmart and most of what you buy is made by people who do that. And that's like another thing that I hate when it comes to physical products, and that like everything that I ever like launch that's physical, like that will matter to me. Like this is an expensive protein. It's not the most expensive on the market, but it's an ultra premium product and it's more expensive than most of what you'll find on the shelf. But the reason for that is because it's the best quality ingredients that we could possibly source. It's made here in the United States, which, you know, proteins for the most part that are sold in the US are. So that's not in of itself like groundbreaking, but the material is not being sourced from China. That's a big deal. Most protein powders are sourcing their proteins from cheap China sources, like the vast majority of proteins. And like, we're not doing that. Like our beef and our bone broth are coming from Sweden, and our egg white comes from the United States. And then our monk fruit's coming from Thailand, and then our Himalayan sea salt's coming from Thailand as well. And then the cocoa powder comes from the United States. So, but that was just like a conscious decision on our part. And of course that resulted in higher like product cost, which means a higher cost of product like to the consumer. But I don't care, because the consumer that I'm going after is someone who's like
Subculture. It's
right. I'm going after a consumer that's like, yeah, I'm willing to pay more because the quality is there, and I know that a slave didn't have to make this.
It amazes me how it's socially acceptable for Nike and Apple to do what they're doing with their products in China.
Or Disney. Let's not forget Disney and all the shit
Is
that they
Disney
sell.
doing it too?
Well, look at all the stuff that
I'm
they
sure
sell
they
in
are.
their parks.
Oh yeah, they got
All that crap's made in China.
So many shops at the parks.
But it's not okay to not teach your first, second, and third grade kids about sex and sexuality.
My kids
In
will be
a
homeschooled.
public
That's all I
setting?
have to say about that.
That's a parent thing, my man. Yeah, parents.
Yeah. That's
not a
again,
teacher.
The state
I
is
could
not
become a
responsible
teacher.
for educating my child.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm also allowed to decide for my child what my child should be educated with. Like, do I wish that I would have been exposed to more ideas as a kid? Absolutely. But do I wish that the government had forced my parents to like shove stuff down my throat that my parents didn't want me to learn about? Absolutely not. Because even though it may have helped me, who knows what else they would have programmed me with instead? It's all programming anyways. So
And
it's
all things brought you here, brother.
that's the thing.
You know,
That's the thing.
you're doing just fine. You're doing amazing.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. But the China thing, the products thing, like
Yeah.
the control of what you put in your body, what you put in your house, all of those things, like we're living in a world where more and more the governments want control over how you get things, where you get things, when you get things. And I believe in rebelling against that, right? Like this product to me is a rebellion of that. Like it's a rebellion of the products that are on the market that I think that are there because they make more money. And I'm saying, if I sell less protein, I sell less protein.
Yeah.
I don't need a yacht. I just need to
A small boat.
I need to put my kids in soccer, and a pontoon boat would be nice.
Pontoon, yeah.
You know?
In the Channel
Hell yeah.
Lakes, yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good move.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can always build more businesses if you want to build more wealth. You don't have to extract every dollar out of every single business. You don't have to make the profit margins as absolutely fat as you can make them. And the truth is, you can still have super fat profit margins even by having higher priced products, because people who want quality are willing to pay for quality. If this product had already existed, I would just be buying it and we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not the only one I have found that cares in that same way. And also when you have higher profit margins or higher priced products, at least, it gives you an opportunity to do things that are meaningful. Like, for example, as an organization, I'm implementing, as we start to grow our team, a 4-day work week. So as we start to build a team of full-time employees that are working at Ancient Strength, our familia, as we call it, because
I love that.
my Cuban background. So, familia, the first two letters, F-A, is kind of like an homage to future ancestor. So it's like the ancient strength familia, and then future ancestors are our customers. But
Capital F, capital A.
Yep.
Then Milia.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So for our familia, we're going to have 4-day work weeks. And that is so that every person in the company has an additional personal day every week to do the things that are meaningful to them. And guess what? I believe that that's actually going to drive growth for the business because people will be more motivated to work harder the days that they are there. And if, by the way, they're not motivated to work harder, then they don't belong at my company, right? So, but that costs money to be able to do that. And another example, 5% of every dollar earned, we're donating to charity, not 5% of profits, right? Which profits, as reported to the IRS, right? Or as reported to reported in whatever way you want to report it, right? Profit is not a clear number. So when you see a company that says like, oh, a portion of profits are donated to causes or whatever, first of all, what is that portion? And even if they say 5% or 10% of profits, how are the profits being calculated? Is it just like cost of goods subtracted from what you charge the consumer? Is it like after you're paying everybody's salary and operating expenses and taxes? Like, what is that number that is actual? Sometimes it's only 5% of the money that you're actually making. So, if you sell a $100 product and you say 5% of profits go to charity and the profits on paper is only $5, then I'm not a mathematician, but 5% of $5, a 20th of $5, that's like 5 cents times 5, right? That's a quarter, a quarter. So a $100 product results in a quarter being donated to charity. That's the kind of thing that the companies that are squeezing their margins by buying shit in China and making everything as cheap as possible, that's the kind of altruism that they do.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas what we're doing is what we're calling 5% of every dollar earned. So,
what charity, if you don't mind me asking, do you guys donate to?
Yeah. So we're going to take this in battles. So what that means is we're going to choose our battles one at a time. And then we're going to attack different areas of the world that we want to improve. So I have like basically 2 main philanthropical goals, and there'll be others, but for me personally, I want to bring an end to child sex trafficking. And I would like for every human on earth to have clean drinking water. So those 2 things.
That'd be dope.
Those are the 2 things that I care about. It would cost about $33 billion. That's my rough estimate to bring clean drinking water to everyone in the world. So Elon, if you're listening, like real easy.
Doesn't sound too bad.
No, not really. I think that the sex trafficking is going to be much harder to root out because, all of our politicians do that. So
how much is the island?
Yeah.
How much is the island that we wrote down? It should be a note.
What, Epstein Island?
Yeah, it's being
Like
sold.
Oh,
I think
God.
It's 25 million or something.
I would love to buy that thing and just blow it the fuck up.
Yes.
Blow it.
I would love to host a podcast near it where it's just like in the background. We could just
Blowing
talk
up
about
in the background.
at the end, just like,
$125 million
Yeah.
for islands.
Yeah. Fuck all those people, first of all. I mean,
everybody,
so disgusting.
so many people visited it. It's just weird.
Funny enough,
It's
what
weird.
what actually, so this is a really interesting story. I want to close the loop on the charity thing because it's what we were talking about. So the current battle that we're on right now is we're donating 5% of every dollar earned to Operation Underground Railroad, which
That's
is a
the sex
charity.
trafficking?
Yeah, which is a charity run by Tim Ballard that actually actively participates in like rescue operations and support operations with law enforcement all around the world to save children and women from sex trafficking. So for every bottle of protein, that literally means $4 from every single bottle of protein sold is going directly to Operation Underground Railroad. And we're also working with some of our sponsored distribution and capital partners to work on a potential donation match for those dollar amounts as well. So we're in the final stages of that, but we hope to even double or potentially even triple the amount of money that we're raising for them. And so like building quality products at a premium price point allows you to do those things. Right. But like you don't see Walmart donating 5% of every dollar earned because that's executive yacht money. So they're never going to do that. Never going to do that. But, I will. And I'm not the only one. It's not like it's just me. There's lots of businesses that are doing it right. And again, going back to like entrepreneurship and capitalism, like if I were to run for office, I would not be able to create any world where 5% of taxes went to fight sex trafficking.
Why? How come guys like you? So why, like Apple, Disney, you know, just big dogs, big tech, whatever it be, why are they so, I mean, come on, does margins really matter that much with Nike and stuff? Like,
So what's your question?
why can't they why can't
everybody?
I'm coming from a naive point of view, but why the question is why?
Why can't they make half as much money and have one yacht rather than two?
Right.
And like build a better product that doesn't require slave labor?
Exactly.
Basically.
Well, there's a lot of schools of thought. One is just straight up fucking greed.
Yeah.
Which
why would we lose money this year?
What's that?
Why would we lose money this year? Why wouldn't we double our profits?
Right.
You make no sense, Mark Cuda. Get out of the meeting.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is that, you know,
Right.
Old money does what old money does. That's hard for me to believe sometimes, like straight greed. Like, do you really need two yachts and you want like people to die making your products? Like,
Yeah.
what? It seems really weird. So you can have 8 houses instead of 7. I just don't understand. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I have somewhat of a hard time when people are like, oh, greed. But when people say that, I'm like, what the fuck? That's not a compelling enough answer.
Yes.
So where my mind goes is like, there's darkness in the world. Like that is true. Like you see people do things that you're like, how is that possible? And like you call those people criminals. But if you like put them in a position of office or as like a CEO of a big corporation that's publicly traded and you give them a suit and a haircut, then you no longer call them criminals. You call them businessmen and politicians. And so what people have to realize is just because a corporation is big and just because like a corporation has philanthropic efforts and like does all these things that look good on paper, it doesn't mean that everybody who is involved in those corporations, and oftentimes it's not even the figurehead people, it's some of the people that are behind the scenes. Like there's no reason to believe that all of the people at all of the most powerful companies in the world are also really just great people.
Down to earth. Man.
Just super down to earth, great people. Like that's just naive.
Yeah.
Right. It's just naive to think that like you can get success without being a piece of shit, but it sure helps. And when you are trying to play at the level that they're playing, it's not even about the money anymore. It's just about continuing on your power trip, right? They say like, what is the saying? Like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think it's probably more accurate that like power is like a vacuum and it attracts people who are already attracted to power. Like they're like magnetically attracted, and oftentimes people who are attracted to power are attracted to power for the wrong reasons, usually like insecurity or trauma, or, you know, like if you look at a lot of the people who are serial killers or that become rapists, like you look at their backgrounds, they had terrible childhoods.
Yep.
They were raped or molested, or they were beaten, or they were a foster child, like really bad backgrounds. And so you have these people that come out into the world with these super skewed beliefs. And then if they happen to also be really smart and like went to a good college and like are sweet talkers, they might end up the CEO of Viacom. And I'm not calling out Viacom. I was really reading about.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I was just reading about Viacom earlier, like in a book yesterday. So it's top of mind. But like, I'm not insinuating that anybody at Viacom could be any corporation. But like, you know, who's to say that the CFO at some multi-conglomerate that you've never. By the way, the most of like the super wealthy companies or like organizations that exist, you don't even know what they're called because they're actually just organizations that own all the stuff that you do know. Right, like have you ever turned around like a bottle of anything in like the self-care aisle, and it's like, oh, Procter & Gamble, oh,
never.
Johnson & Johnson, like, you know, these companies own almost everything. Like,
Yeah.
maybe this isn't a good example. These guys might be self-owned. Nope, Nestle, right? Like Zephyr
Nestle
Hills,
owns Zephyr Hills.
100% natural, Florida spring water. Like we're sitting here in Central Florida, like drinking Florida water from Zephyr Hills, Florida, which is also a city in Florida. Mm-hmm. You would think to yourself, like, cool, Zephyr Hills water, Zephyr Hills, Florida, probably a Zephyr Hills company, Zephyr Hills guy who runs it.
Green leaves on the label.
Right. You got flowers on the label, but it's owned by Nestle. And if you pull up like Nestle's website and you look at what Nestle owns, it's like so much shit. You know, they talk about like Ovaltine versus Nesquik. Nestle owns them both.
Wow.
Think about that.
So you're playing both sides.
Yeah, and most of these corporations do. I mean, if you look at Johnson & Johnson or
Left and
Procter &
right
Gamble or Unilever, Unilever is another really big one, right? Like these are conglomerates that own, and these are the conglomerates that we know about, like publicly facing, but there's more.
What about left and right Twix, man? Are they owned by the same person?
Who knows? That's it. I don't know. That one I can't answer.
They're
for
playing
you.
both sides, man. Left and right Twix.
Probably owned by Bill Gates at some level of
hierarchy.
abstraction. Yeah, like
Nestle
Bill Gates
does
owns it.
A lot of companies, though. I'm looking at it right now here.
Yeah, they look at that.
Hold on.
Oh gosh, there's a
No,
flow chart.
No,
Yeah,
this is-
so-
This is terrifying.
So okay, so yeah, there you go. Unilever, right? Unilever's there. You got Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, General Mills, and then here's the thing: the executives at all these companies, they're buddies, and they go to their little retreats, their off-sites together, and they all work with the same lobbyists in government to make sure that they continue to get subsidies and they get tax breaks and they get all sorts of favored treatment. And look, that's the majority of the brands. If it's in a box at a grocery store, like, it's probably owned by one of these 8 companies.
Nestle owns DiGiorno.
that is so crazy.
Yeah, they own DiGiorno. And they own Nespresso,
Yeah.
Nespresso,
That's cafe right here.
Nescafe.
Dasani doesn't even deserve to be up here, man. That's some of the worst
So
water I've
look
ever
at
had.
that.
Dasani's
Look at this shit. San Pellegrino and Perrier are owned by Nestle. So it's like you got people that are like Team Perrier and Team San Pellegrino. It's like it's the same
both.
company. Like no matter who you give the dollars to, it goes to the same douchebag's yacht, right?
These guys.
So that's and if you look at you can pull this up, Kenny, the media companies. Like I'm sure you've seen this one, right? Like how Google, I don't know, all media companies owned by 6 corporations. Owned by Disney.
That's the first one that popped
they've
up.
got our number now.
by 6
Yeah.
corporations.
By 6 companies. Yeah, that whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Let's see what.
If you go to like images, I'm sure you'll get a very similar flow chart.
Doesn't Disney own Fox News?
These guys?
I could be completely wrong.
I think
but
Fox News is the only part of Fox that they don't own.
Oh, but they own everything
But
else.
they own
Fox.
everything else. You were at it there. Oh,
This one?
right there.
Yeah,
that's
let's give
that's
that
a
a shot.
really good example.
Damn,
th-
Reddit. They're
on
making
Reddit,
it real
yeah.
small. There we go.
yeah. So these 6 companies own all of those media companies.
Oh,
It's an
Like-
ad. If you scroll out, there's probably an ad that's blocking it out. Scroll up and down, maybe.
nope.
No.
Can you try pulling it out and just blowing on it, putting it back in? That might do the trick.
Oh,
Refresh it.
while he's trying to get this to work. Oh, there we go.
Look at that, right?
That is crazy.
So look at, and Disney's obviously a great example. If you look at all the stuff that Disney owns, and this isn't even updated, this is super old because now Disney owns Star Wars and they own Marvel. And
Yes.
and that seems innocent on the surface. It's like, yeah, so what? They're just getting bigger and they're, dude, they want to put Iron Man on Disney Plus. They want to make an Iron Man roller coaster. It's like natural, right?
Just buy them.
But it's not, because then they also control the narrative of all the content that comes with it. So imagine if you were trying to control a narrative for an entire country or even an entire world. If 6 companies own 90% of media, which I think look at that. More than 90% of U.S. media is controlled by just 6 companies. And again, they all go to the same offsites. They all go to the same awards dinners, the same economic forum meetings. They're all buddies.
This is giving me it's making
Right?
me feel uncomfortable almost.
Yeah.
Well, it should.
Damn.
So if that's the case, how easy would it be for them to all be in some level of cahoots to ensure that the type of messaging that they want your children and you to be receiving is programming you in the direction that they want you to be programmed?
So, like you said earlier, you're a strong capitalist. You love capitalism. How do we avoid 6 companies from just fucking wiping their ass with everybody and everything?
Well,
it's a hard question. I know it's a hard answer. I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out, right?
yeah,
So-
I'm not a believer in regulating a whole bunch of stuff, preventing things by government control. I just don't think that the government is I don't like the government. I don't think that the government is good. I think that they're mostly useless. One of the podcast episodes that I'm working on is a monologue. I'm doing research and compiling an outline for, and it's I haven't decided on the title, but it's going to be along the lines of are the world's governments evil or just stupid? And that's the real question is where's the balance between evil and stupid? And so either way, they're not good. So I don't really trust them to solve the world's problems.
Mm-hmm.
So from my perspective, I think part of it is actually that the government, rather than creating environments where this doesn't happen, they're the ones that are actively creating the environment where it does happen. Because if you dig deep enough and you look at the filings and the SEC and you look at what Nancy Pelosi is investing in and the lobbyists and how they're changing the laws to, and keeping laws maintained so that people can't come in and compete with them, and that so these mergers happen even though they shouldn't, like all these carrier mergers, right? Like, who do you think it is that is deciding on whether or not those carrier mergers happen, like the T-Mobile Sprint deal, for example, right? Like it's the FCC, right? Federal Communications Consortium. What is it?
C word of some sort.
Yeah, something along those lines, right? But the FCC is the one that like decides on. They vote. Like, who the fuck gave them the vote? Why don't I get a vote? First of all, but whatever. Beyond that, like this is a government-run organization that we are trusting to make these kinds of decisions. But then they approve the merger, right? You're like, well, that's weird. And you go, well, who's funding the FCC? Like, who donates the most to them?
And it's
all the carriers.
it's them.
In the same way that like the pharmaceutical companies, right? Like Russell Brand did an incredible video on this a few months ago where he was talking about how like the FDA, which again, going into the supplements, like it's the FDA that it's approved the use of sucralose, for example, as an artificial sweetener, which is absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit. There's way better options for zero-calorie sweeteners than sucralose that shouldn't be on the market, right? Along with a lot of other things that shouldn't be on the market. And you go, okay, well, they're approving this stuff. Phthalates in our plastic, right? Like that study that came out that showed that 70% of fast food has phthalates in it. That's crazy. That's microplastics. You're eating if you go to McDonald's, you're eating plastic. And like that's literally been proven. So you go, okay, well, how did that get approved? And the FDA is like, oh, but it's okay. It's like within limits that we decided were okay.
Wink, wink.
And you're like, okay, well, what made you decide that? Oh, well, these studies we ran over a month. Okay, well, what about like 20 years? Oh, we don't have any of those studies. Okay, well, who even funded the studies that you do have? McDonald's. Okay, and like, who donated the most money to you in like the last 5 years? Taco Bell. Like, and that's the truth. Right? So again, it's like the government, in my opinion, shouldn't be doing the job of like preventing this to happen, because I think that a true free market would make it so that this wouldn't happen. Because if it actually was a level playing field, I don't think that you would have nearly as much corruption as you do when the government is actively using its resources and its power to make all of this shit happen. Now, does that mean that there shouldn't be any regulations at all? No. Am I advocating for anarchy? Maybe,
yeah,
but not really,
yeah.
Right? So it's a balance, I think. But the point is, like, they're actively making it worse. The government is actively making it worse now, in my opinion. And that's just, it's not really my opinion. It's like you look at the FDA and you're like, okay, who's donating to them? Oh, it's the same people who want to make sure that their foods get approved for human consumption. Like,
yeah,
that wouldn't happen if it wasn't necessary. Like, why would McDonald's donate $10 million to the FDA last year? Which I don't know how much money McDonald's
And that's on public record?
I don't know the number, but it's a lot. And it's not McDonald's, it's everybody, right? Like the vast majority of the FDA's like donation funding like comes from these organizations that are directly working with fast food companies, right? So my thing is like, if what fast food companies cared about was the quality of the food that they were feeding to you, why would they feel a need to pay millions of dollars? If what they really care about is profits, why would they pay millions of dollars to the FDA to do studies on their food that then prove the food's unhealthy, but then the FDA approves it anyway?
Right. It's weird.
Like, the math just doesn't add up.
Nestle pulls up on your stuff, man. You're in the early stages, right? Charming guy. Real charming guy. This is your third time speaking to him. He took you out to get lobster.
His name is Dennis.
Yeah. Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
Super charming guy.
The Dennis Rodman.
Yeah,
actually.
it's him actually.
It's a new.
He works with Nestle. He's the seventh company that owns everything. Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, it's like Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Dennis Rodman.
It's crazy that he met with Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong-un's a huge fan of Dennis Rodman. That's just crazy to me. Did you see all that?
Makes you wonder.
Yeah, what's going on? Maybe he
Makes
is
you
this
wonder,
thing.
is Kim Jong-un the guy that they say he is, or
Yeah, all right. Donald, him and
he
DT met up.
he technically hasn't launched any nukes, so there's at least that.
Thanks, Kim, for not doing that.
Yeah, appreciate you, bro.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Keep not doing
So
stuff.
continue.
And so charming Dennis Rodman. This is your third time meeting him. He's bought the dinner 3 times.
Yeah, what color is his hair in this scenario? So I can really
I like the green.
You want to do green?
the green. I was gonna
Okay.
say I really like the green too, or maybe it's like rainbow, kind of like our logo.
Maybe he changed it, and this is the
Just
first time
for
meeting. He
me.
just changed it for the logo, and he's like,
Oh,
"Listen,
shit.
Holy.
we're
Look at
big
me.
fans."
He's like, look, man, I'm just like you. He's got the rainbow hair.
And he has
Okay.
fuel edged in, but yeah. On
Oh
the
my
side.
god, that is beautiful.
And-
Okay, this is compelling. I
And-
like this.
Right, it's very compelling. And then they offer you a number
Mhm.
which you would have never thought of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You'd probably, I mean, well, probably.
I would not take it.
You want to take it?
No,
Respect to you.
I would not take it. I would not take it.
I guess I didn't think of it because, I mean, this is my baby. And if something came out to me and said, hey, can I buy your baby? I don't know.
Yeah. Would I sell? Yes, but it would have to be. Like, we probably will sell at least. I mean, we'll sell at least some percentage of the company at some point to somebody who was going to help us get bigger. But it would never be. It would never be to one of the big guys that are trying to just eat up.
It would have to make sense.
It would have to be a suitor, and that's the cool thing. There's so many roll-ups that exist now. There's
Cool.
more and more that you don't have to sell to Pfizer.
The big dog.
You don't have to sell to Pfizer to make a lot of money.
The,
You could,
mandators.
and I'm not knocking anybody who would, because maybe look, there could be contracts in place that say like, we will never change the product formulas. We won't change any of the way that you operate the business. Like, the business won't operate any different. It's just that, like, that percentage of profit that usually goes to you guys as shareholders, we want that percentage of profit. And for some people, like, that's probably enough, as long as like their vision is not compromised, right? But ultimately, usually the vision is going to get compromised in a deal like that. And even if it's not, you have to ask yourself, like, do you want to be funneling money into those people's pockets ultimately? And that's not, I mean, I'm not really somebody who believes in that much moral, like, absolutism. I don't, so
Absolute truth.
yeah, I mean, I think there are elements of absolute truth, but in a case like that, like, do I think somebody's immoral for doing that? No, definitely not. Would I do it? I just don't see it happening, because for me, I just care too much. You have to remember, Brant, like, I literally grew up in a religion where I thought I was like one of the few people that was going to survive Armageddon. And my whole existence was around like teaching other people about God so that they wouldn't die. Like,
Yeah.
So from a very young age, like, my whole worldview was like, hey, you're here to be Noah. And I don't like, I'm not deluded enough to believe that I am Noah, but I'm deluded enough to believe that I should try.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I just as like a personal thing, I don't think I could, like, I've walked away from business deals before. I've quit 6-figure jobs when I found at multiple times. I've quit like 5 or 6 jobs simply because of like something I found out about the company, or like the way that they were doing business, or about the product or service that I was like, I couldn't stand behind. Like, I one time left a company that had a software product for businesses, and I won't be more specific so as not to hurt anybody's feelings, but our product was more expensive than the competitors, and it had less features. And I was the director of sales. So I led a sales team of people selling this product, often converting people from the other solution to ours. And the more and more that I got involved in the company, it was about a year in that I was like so involved with the product side of the company that I determined like, oh, like, we're not as good as the competitors. And when I learned that, like, I literally just like, I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. Like, I literally quit that job. Well, I won't say when I quit that job, because that also narrows down. But you know what? Fuck it. I quit that job in the summer of 2020. So if the person who's running that company happens to be listening to this, sorry, bro. But I quit that job in the middle of the first COVID lockdowns in June of 2020, with no sights on where I was going to make money next. And it was actually 3 months before the exit came through from our V share that I got, which I didn't even know was happening. So at the time, it's not like I knew I had this cushion or that this cushion was coming. And I had like 3 months of expenses saved, and I quit my job with a 1.5-year-old son at home.
Wow.
And the next month I made $8,000 doing contract work. So
yeah.
So it works out, I think, in the end. But
For sure.
I'm always the person. I will always be the person that's willing to like burn the ships because it's the right thing to do.
Willing to tell Dennis Rodman no, even though he has fuel edged into his hair. And
yeah, I would
rainbow.
be. I would be.
Cool.
But that's just a personal thing. It's
right.
I just cared that much about how the things that I do impact the world.
That's great.
And I think that if everybody was like that, we'd have a lot less problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if everybody took responsibility for their behavior and behaved in a way that was meaningful and uplifting, it doesn't mean that you have to be a prude. It doesn't mean that you have to be a buzzkill. I love to have a great time, just as like anybody else. But it doesn't mean that like the general direction of my life can't be altruistic, you know? Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that are like extremists in that sense. Like it's like you have a bunch of like Mother Teresas and then a bunch of Dan Bilzerians. You know,
that'd be a great movie, man. Can we get that?
What?
Add in Dan Bilzerian and Mother Teresa and throw that into like
we could put him in a cage,
like a little cage fight.
I would pay money to see that.
Did you ever watch Semi-Pro?
No.
It's a movie with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, is that the basketball movie?
Yeah,
right?
their team's the Flint Tropics, Flint, Michigan. Who would have thought? There was a scene where
that's pre-programming, baby.
Dude, I love Semi-Pro.
Really?
Yeah, it's a feel-good movie. Klay Thompson, he was injured for a while on Golden State Warriors, and he in an interview, he was like, "Yeah, I watched a couple movies," and then of course the interviewer was like, "Oh, perfect time. Like, what movies did you watch?" And he was like, "Oh, Semi-Pro. Whenever I felt like down or sad for being out for so long, he's like that movie.
Love that.
Yeah, it'd make me fall back in love with basketball and realize, it's supposed to be a fun game, And then later that week, Golden State, whoever organized it, Will Ferrell comes out in the all tropics uniform and he's doing his
hell yeah
warm-ups, and Clay's like sitting there looking over and
his Will Ferrell warm-ups. Yeah,
and Will Ferrell makes like 3 jump shots in a row.
Yeah, I've heard he's actually pretty good at basketball, right?
Yeah. Him and Adam. Have you seen Adam Sandler ball?
No, but I love Adam Sandler, and boy, do I miss him.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Remember when movies were like funny?
Yeah, feel good.
Yeah,
Adam Sandler comedies.
Why is everything so
good?
Like serious now?
Yeah, CGI.
Yeah, serious and
subliminal
serious
messages.
and fake. It's like it's super weird.
Yeah,
I hardly. You asked earlier, like, oh, so you don't like watch Netflix or anything? Like, I just don't find they don't appeal to me anymore. Like the stuff that's on them, it's just like, okay, so you just want me to feel a certain way and think like everything is a fucking agenda.
Yeah,
and nothing. Like my wife and I, we like to watch old movies, so we'll download. Like she's obsessed with Audrey Hepburn, so we watch like old Audrey Hepburn movies, and I watch like documentaries and old comedies and stuff. Like
colored or black and white?
Both.
Yeah,
it depends on what's available.
I feel like drinking some wine and maybe watching like a black and white movie.
It's also highly romantic.
Yes. Yeah. Sets the mood.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we should try that.
Like you and I, or the three of us?
The three of us?
Just
watch
some
party?
brotherly love.
Huh?
A watch party?
Yeah, a little watch party. Yeah.
I'm looking at the video here of Will Ferrell. He does have buckets indeed, bro.
Can you pull it up, actually?
Yeah, I want to hear. I want to see that.
Oh, yeah. Clay's like uncomfortably.
Come on, Jackie.
Oh, he's saying, come on, Jackie. That's great.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, man.
That was a good roll, too. The fact that it like rolled around the rim so soft and went in, it's a small thing, but that like just means he's getting a good flick,
Here he goes.
He's running around in circles.
They got a whole interview. Dang, Will Ferrell's getting old, man.
I was going to say, he looks like shit.
Dang, dude.
Hey, man.
Compare this guy to Mark Sisson.
Right. Maybe he should try that
right?
Gaps diet.
Look at this guy.
Maybe he should drink some Ancestral Fuel. I don't know.
Oh,
wait.
From half court? No way.
I bet. Buckets.
Whoa, off the glass.
Will Ferrell's hilarious, man.
That's
Absolutely
sick.
hilarious.
Look
Yeah,
at
he's
that.
good.
Nice.
My girlfriend said she didn't think Will Ferrell was ever that funny, and
Wow.
I said, you know what, babe?
And that's what.
I can
And
get
that's when
over
she
this.
became your ex.
Yeah. It's like, I love you. Okay. Well, we can set this aside.
You know what though? I can see that. I can understand that because the thing about Will Ferrell is like he is for the most part almost always the same character.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit of a tiring character. And if you're not like really into that particular kind of humor, it's like I could see
over.
Yeah, I could see people being turned off by Will Ferrell. I mean, sometimes I look at his stuff and I'm like, all right, bro, just
the worst Will Ferrell movie there was Get Hard.
Get Hard.
With
I saw that one.
It was with
Kevin
Hart.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Was it with
It was with Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart's another one of those that's like every movie he's in, it's the same character.
And
Yeah,
with The Rock.
Also, yeah, I would just and always with The Rock.
Yeah.
And also just as a short man, I would like to say directly to Kevin Hart, I think it's really, really sad that he uses the fact that he's short as like every single fucking joke, and that every movie that he's in, every role that they cast him in, every joke in every movie is about him being short. And I'm like, it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's too easy. I can't think of the right word.
Yeah, it's just right there already. Like you're
it's just there's no depth to that joke, especially when you make it like a quadrillion times.
Get Hard was where in Will Ferrell, I can't remember the relationship between Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart, but Will Ferrell had to go to the hood for some reason. And he had to,
it's already funny.
Yeah, he had to maneuver his way into somehow getting the hood on his side for something. And Kevin Hart wasn't hood, but he acted hood.
Right.
And so Will Ferrell paid Kevin Hart to play this, or to introduce him to the hood. And Kevin Hart isn't hood himself. He's like a real classic guy.
Yeah.
But so they get there and Kevin Hart has no idea what to do either. So he's just as scared as Will Ferrell is. And it's just funny. And Will Ferrell ends up teaching all these gangster guys who are like selling, illicit drugs and things like that. He ends up teaching them how to trade stocks. Like,
way.
So you're like, he's like, yeah, when they go down, you go up and blah, 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 like options, puts and calls. And he's like,
my God.
So you're basically just stealing money from the other guy who called the vice versa. And he's like, yeah.
And they're like, I dig it.
I did. Yeah. He's like, I'll fuck with that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, I mean, that scene's funny, but
that is so funny. I just mean in general. I feel like he leans on it too much. It's like kind of one note. Just like it's old.
It's weird seeing stand-ups cross over into these big actor roles like Kevin Hart.
Well, that's been happening, I think, for a long time, right?
Yeah, since forever. But I don't know.
Now it's like weaker. Now it sort of just seems like, oh, they're just putting them into it, and it's always like I think about too how like Hollywood is so cyclical. Like it'll be the same people in every movie for 5 years, and then you never hear about them again, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you remember when what's his name? Like Nicolas Cage was in like every movie for 5 years.
Yeah, facts.
What was it? Ghost Rider.
Bruce Willis was in every movie for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks was in every movie for like
Liam
10
Neeson.
years.
When Tom Hanks got COVID, the whole world freaked out.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Remember when Tom Hanks was like the first celebrity to get COVID and everybody was like,
I don't want to talk about Tom Hanks.
You see Tom Hanks' son? You did
The one that looks just like him?
Chet. His name's Chet, right?
He has a son that looks like just like him, right? You talking about that, or is that the other
I can't
one?
tell if he looks like him.
Is he the one that has like is an actor?
Yeah, Chet is.
Is it Chet?
Yeah, I don't know his
well,
name.
this one's Chet Hanks. I don't know if he kind of looks similar, but not like him, I guess. But
Whoa.
he made this song called "White Boy Summer," and this is Tom Hanks' son. What happened?
I remember seeing this.
The White Boy Summer.
Yes, I remember
That's funny.
And I'm like, Tom Hanks is probably like, "Hey, Chet, just
What the
saw
fuck?"
this YouTube video trending. Approval maybe before, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I wonder.
but it was this rap song and he's like dancing on all these cars and I'm like,
What's your favorite Tom Hanks movie?
ooh,
And why?
you know what? I'm not a big fan of Tom Hanks. I've never been
Why?
into the because I've never
don't
been
like
a
him
movie
either.
guy. I've never
As a
been a big
person.
movie guy. As a person?
Yeah, I don't like him
know
as a
enough.
person.
You know, he doesn't. I mean,
I
he
mean,
is pretty
I-
I've
white.
just heard a lot. I've
I
just heard a
could
lot
say
of bullshit
Forrest
about him.
Gump. I could say Forrest Gump because I mean it's a movie that everybody's seen, but
Forrest Gump is a great movie.
yeah.
I may not be a smart man, but I know what love is. One of the best lines of all time.
Is
man.
this what you're talking about, Brant?
Yeah, White Boy Summer.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
Look at
that
that.
I'm sure that made Daddy Tom real proud.
Hey,
Real
Chet.
proud.
Hey,
Hey,
Chet,
Chet.
I just saw the video.
Why does he sound like Matthew McConaughey?
I don't know.
I love
That was actually a really good
Yeah.
impression of him.
Yeah.
You should roll with that.
Thank you.
He's another one that was in like, you know, every movie for 5 years, and then you don't hear about him. Or who was the girl from Hunger Games?
Yes.
I don't remember her name.
Man, I know her
she's not
stage
important.
name's Katniss Everdeen, but
Yeah, her.
yeah, her
Katniss.
name is huge. What's her?
I'm literally looking.
Starts with a J, right?
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer
Jennifer
Lawrence.
Lawrence.
So I was
Yeah.
one letter right. Out of all those letters, it's like 6% correct.
Yeah.
6% of the way there. Yeah, like she was in every movie for a while, right? And what's funny is like, and then they just start throwing them in every franchise. Oh, she's an X-Men now, right? Like start putting them in everything. Da 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 da. And then it's like it plays its part. And then when was the last movie that you saw being like majorly hyped that she was in? I'm not saying she's not still doing stuff, but
There hasn't been one majorly hyped, but there's a new release I've watched recently, which I'm not a big movie guy, so I'm surprised I've watched one with her in it. But
She was on Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
It's a
Don't even know
Netflix
what that is.
original. It had Leonardo.
Mm.
It had
That's cool.
Who's the white guy?
Jonah
Leo, man,
Hill,
now that's a damn good
Leo.
actor right there.
Jonah Hill was in it too.
You haven't seen that movie?
No.
Pretty good.
And so, it was pretty good, but it's not going to be something that ages to where
Yeah,
like,
no.
I'm not
Right.
going to watch
It's not
it with
pop
my
culture.
wife. Yeah, in like 20 years, I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing that.
So what I'm talking about is like pop culture level hits.
Yeah, none.
If you look at them, it's like it's the same people in like every movie for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And then you pretty much never hear from them again. There's a few people that stick around longer than that. And like some people make a resurgence later on. But for the most part, it's like very interesting. They just sort of like, they rinse and repeat the same formula. And then they just bring in new, fresh blood every couple of years.
I like,
weird.
oddly enough, I don't know why a lot of people don't like him, but Ryan Gosling. I actually enjoy like the rom-coms that Ryan Gosling's in. And
Like The Notebook.
yeah,
It's a good movie.
Yeah, that's a good.
It is a
It's a
good
biggie.
movie.
Never
Yeah.
watched it.
There was one, no, it wasn't Jennifer Lawrence. Okay, I was gonna say this is weird. There was one recently I watched where he was like a real player type guy, and I'm so bad with actors' names. Who's the guy in The Office?
Steve Carell?
Steve Carell. Jesus Christ, Steve, I'm so sorry
The
if you're watching this.
Steve Carell. No, that guy's.
Yeah.
So he's coaching,
Legend.
Ryan Gosling's coaching Steve Carell to pick up women because Steve Carell just had a recent divorce.
Why
And-
does this sound like a weird alternate universe version of 40-Year-Old Virgin? Like
Yeah, it kind of is.
Oh,
It kind of
whoa.
is.
You're
It's
not
like-
wrong.
And
the
Ryan-
sequel.
Yeah, that's what they're probably like. This will sell.
It's like
At least.
after the end of that movie didn't work out so much.
And Ryan Gosling is like this extreme player. He pulls all these girls,
Yeah.
beautiful women, and teaches Steve Carell slowly. And then Ryan Gosling's talking about this one girl who's like actually like capturing his attention a little
He gets
bit.
like
and he's
one-itis.
saying all these like quote unquote nasty things that he does with this girl, and Steve Carell's like, oh yeah, like okay, cool, like so teach me. He's teaching him, and then she walks in, and it's Steve Carell's daughter from his recent divorce. And
my
it's just like,
Oh my god.
and so the whole rest of the movie is them maneuvering. Steve Carell falls back in love with his ex-wife, and the family's all together.
Oh, you just fucking
you
ruined
just
it for
spoiled
everybody
it for me,
Boom!
bro.
watching the
Damn.
podcast.
I never said the name of the movie, so technically people have no idea.
Yeah, okay, because I'm sure there's tons of movies with Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell
Carell.
in them. Like, I'm sure that's a huge list that are also about, they're also romantic comedies.
Were you into the?
But that's okay. I wasn't going to watch it anyways. And
Yeah.
who cares about your listeners? It's all about us anyway. So.
I did not say that. Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson is a good combo. Personally, I think.
Owen Wilson. I just saw Marley and Me for the first time like a couple of months ago. What a good
you cry?
movie. Did
you
I cry?
cry?
No, I didn't
Did
cry.
you feel something?
Yeah, I felt something. Not to say that I'm not a crier. I am. Just that particular movie didn't
Spark it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it was close. It was a good movie. Also, like, I have 3 kids, and I'm like a family man. So for me, there was like, the whole
enjoyed
overarching like story of like them building their family. Like, yeah, that hits home.
Yeah.
So
Did
like,
your family watch it with you too?
just my wife and I.
Okay.
My son is 3.
Yeah,
so
he
to
was
get him to like
watching-
watch a movie, it's like he pretty much just wants to watch like monster trucks, and like he watches these weird videos on YouTube of like people who take like mods on like Grand Theft Auto 5 where like you can just do whatever you want, and they just like make videos where they make like tracks and they drive like monster trucks driven by Spider-Man or motorcycles driven by the Hulk, and they like run them off of cliffs and like into giant bowling pins, like just weird, random. Like this is literally just random stuff running into each other with motors and wheels that has like ragdoll physics. But he loves these weird videos. I try not to let him watch much of it, but like he's literally always asking for like monster truck videos. And then like whatever kids show I'm willing to let him watch, which is not the majority of them. So like these days it's a lot of Tumbleleaf on Amazon Prime, which is one thing I actually have because I buy stuff, unfortunately, on Amazon, usually for the business, like product testing or, you know, materials that we might need, stuff like that. But
I just recently stopped watching those videos of GTA 5 mods, probably about 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So
So
with
you
the
get-
Spider-Man and the Hulks.
so you get it. You get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get it.
Started,
my 3-year-old is obsessed with that shit. He very much prefers it to Marley and Me. And you know, Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is fine for me because it's just one thing to do when he's asleep.
Ryan Gosling flick La La Land. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Me
I'm not really a big movie guy.
It's
honestly.
not good, but I love it.
So why is it not good? And then
Because
why do you
everybody
love
I
it
say
anyway?
I like the movie too, they go, "What the hell?"
Why?
That
Because they don't like
sucked.
it, or because
Well, it's a musical, and I'm not a musical guy, but this La La Land for me is like it just everything about it just hit home, and I just
Oh
felt
man,
it.
I can't think of this movie. My Fair Lady, you know, the Audrey Hepburn movie, also a musical.
Will you pull up a picture?
Where they take her from like a street rat, turn her into like a socialite.
Okay.
Incredible movie,
Yeah.
What's it
by the
called?
way.
Watched it
My
recently.
Fair Lady. Yeah. And not only that, but like it's a musical and it's just so interesting the way that they used to make movies back then. I mean, it's like so different from the way that they make them now.
Those
So much
movies
more,
still
like,
have huge
real.
influence. When you make that big.
Yeah, what the
Wow.
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 Okay, let's see.
Wow.
This is my first time doing this.
Wow.
Wow. This one?
If you want to zoom back out to like normal views, you don't have to keep you know.
I see that.
You said it's your first time, but you're not acting like it's your first time.
What you mean? I'm just
Are you doing that with
I want
the
the audience to
you doing that
watch
with the
too.
trackpad?
Yeah.
If you do it with a command
Command
plus and
I was
minus,
doing that earlier. Yeah, you're
it's
right.
a little easier.
Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah, My Fair Lady, a musical drama.
This looks sick.
Oh
It's really
yeah, I've
good.
seen this.
This
Yeah,
scene
it's
looks
really
I've
good.
seen
fire.
this. I watched this. You know
Look
what?
at those costumes,
Dude.
damn,
that-
dude.
Those colors
In
are fire.
Gainesville, my apartment complex had
Crazy.
a movie night where they had this big blow up thing with a projector, and we would
Nice.
all lay out on the lawn. And yeah, My
Oh,
Fair
yeah,
Lady
yeah,
was
yeah,
one
I
of the
know what you're
movies
talking
they played.
Yeah,
Also,
and it's also good, like genuinely good. And
Yeah.
you ever notice that like when people speak in these movies, they are so wonderfully articulate.
yeah, they pronounce their words very well.
Everything is enunciated
Yeah,
correctly,
enunciated.
and like, I mean, in this movie specifically, obviously, because like the movie is literally like part of it is about Professor Higgins like teaching her how to speak properly, and so he has this like incredible pattern of speech. It's actually funny if you want to know what like my wife and I's relationship is like. It's like a less dramatized version of these two in this movie,
Aw.
which is kind of funny.
Wow.
People would call that misogynistic, but you know, you can ask my wife if she thinks
Here's
I'm a
what it is.
misogynist. So it's funny. I've had so many people call me like a sexist misogynist.
I think girls
For-
enjoy masculinity.
Yeah,
And if you
absolutely.
don't, maybe get a, I don't know, do something
Maybe
else.
get one that does.
Everybody has a type, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I've studied a lot about masculinity and femininity and like the polarity of those energies. And I mean, there's tons of incredible books to read on that topic. My favorite is there's a lot that I would say are in my favorites, but one of the earlier ones that I read that was impactful for me was called The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. I think it's how you pronounce his last name. And it's just like, you know, growing up, men are not taught this, but there are very specific ways to like initiate your own manhood, right? And in primitive cultures and ancient cultures, there were always rites of passage for both men and women. Like when a girl had her first period, which by the way, in ancient cultures, like they were pretty much always in tune with the moon cycles, which for anybody who doesn't know is 28 days. And the menstrual cycle is also 28 days. Very interesting. Makes you wonder why we're so perfectly in tune with the earth. But That's a whole other topic. But what they would
Everything's
do,
connected.
everything is connected.
Big facts.
But what they would do is literally they would take her away like into a ritual hut for a week during her period. And that was when they would teach her about sexuality and about marriage and like how sex worked, but also like how her body worked. And they would help her through this first period. And they would, they would teach her like how to care for her body during this period. And then when she came back for the first time after this week away in this hut or whatever, they would have prepared, and like the wise women of the tribe would go with her into this hut or whatever. They would come back a week later and they would have a huge feast for her. And they'd have this huge celebration. And it was like, you're a woman now. And of course, there's like tons of examples of that for men as well. Like, being dropped off in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like, okay, make your way back to the tribe or die. Or like there's, cutting, not that it's healthy, but like cutting rituals that they would have with men. Like you'd have to get stabbed or sliced or something. And like, learn like that's what happens to a man. You still have to stand back up, or you'd have to fight, or you'd have to, do some crazy thing that was like an initiation, a rite of passage into manhood. And at that point, your boy psychology starts to change into like man psychology. And there's a lot of underlying ideas. Like, Carl Jung talked a lot about like these personality archetypes, right? And like the masculine archetypes, like the king, the lover, the magician, and the warrior, and like how we're all different pieces of all of those, but we have dominance and we have, minor elements in our personalities. And like, there's all these things about masculinity that people don't know about. And it's funny because everyone, toxic masculinity, it's like, they don't even know what that means, because in reality, the world doesn't have enough real masculinity. It's actually a lack of masculinity that causes men to beat their women or to steal from others or to be lazy. Like, that's not toxic masculinity, because that's not a thing, because masculinity is not toxic. What that is actually an absence of masculinity, because masculinity is something completely different. So for me, it's like, I know what works for me, but I also know, like, generally speaking, what works for most people, because it's biology. And they've done so many studies on humans in the psychology of masculine versus feminine. Like, they estimate that like 80 to 90% of women are dominantly feminine, like not necessarily 99 to 1%, but like more than 50% feminine in terms of their leaning of their energy. And when I say energy, I mean, they measure a ton of different traits, and, whether it's behavioral traits or economic traits or environmental traits, like they measure all these different things. And 80 to 90% of men are dominantly masculine. And for the most part, it's skewed further to one side than the other than you might think. And most dominantly masculine men are attracted to dominantly feminine women, and vice versa. And then there's like balanced, which are people who are somewhere in the middle. That's usually like 5 to 10% of the population, maybe 20% of the population, where they're like somewhere in the middle, and they usually do well with someone that's also in the middle. And then there's the people that are the inverse, right? You see those relationships that are like the woman totally wears the pants, but they actually are happy. Like, there are those people that exist, like where like the woman is the alpha, and that's just her biology and that's his biology. But those people are the outliers, right? And unfortunately, we live in a culture where it's like that is being promoted as like, if you're not that, like you're probably toxically masculine, or you're like an anti-feminist, who is submitting to the patriarchy. And it's like, my wife prefers not to work.
Right.
She prefers to take care of our children. She prefers to have children and cook and make our house beautiful. Like, that's because that's what's natural to her. And it's actually what's natural to more women than it isn't.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's every woman, right? But it's this idea that we have to be one or the other that I think we need to learn to reject. And we used to say you had to be one way, and now we basically just gone and said, now you got to be the opposite. It's like, dude, when will we get it right?
I don't think we will ever. But
our civilization will collapse first.
That's why Elon Musk is trying to get the fuck out of here, but with the Mars trip. But anyway.
Did you see he bought like 9.2% of Twitter?
Yeah.
No way. That's a big dub.
I don't want to derail what you're going to say, though.
No, it's a big dub. I was going to say, a lot of people just like to say the newest thing that makes you a good person. So when somebody
signaling
says,
101.
Yeah. When somebody's like, yeah, toxic masculinity, it's like, hey, what's masculinity? Oh, when a guy's being an asshole. It's like,
right.
Not really. There's guys who are masculine and non-masculine that are both assholes.
Right.
Yeah. It's,
and those that aren't.
They overlap sometimes.
Yeah.
Everybody can be an asshole. I could be an asshole right now if I wanted to. I could be extremely feminine and be an asshole. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Come on, bro.
There's a lot of gay assholes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of straight assholes too. Like, and there's a lot of gay great people and a lot of gay or a lot of straight great people
Elon
too.
Musk.
Like, one of those, those things don't matter. What? Really?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, like, that's news to me.
He hit me up.
What's up, Brant?
Yeah.
Hello, Brant.
I wasn't expecting this, Elon.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah,
But
you
that's
have him on
crazy.
the podcast anytime soon?
Not anytime soon, but
I mean, hey,
I will.
He smoked a joint on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Couldn't believe that.
And he
Never
went
done it before.
on Babylon B's podcast. You saw that?
No, I didn't see
You know
that.
the
You know
Babylon Bee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never watched a long form, but
I didn't even
know
know they had a
Babylon
long
Bee.
form until he was on it.
wow.
But yeah, he went on their podcast and they
They post
they
articles.
tried to get him to convert to Christianity, like live on the call. Like they tried to like they tried to like preach the gospel to him. It was really funny.
To Elon Musk.
To Elon, yeah.
Nice.
What's
Do you
really
know
funny
about
though
our-
is that he didn't actually like his answer. I thought was pretty cool. Like he didn't actually deny like anything that they were saying. He sort of just was
Yeah.
like more open.
Are they still recording?
I'm
Yeah, they're still recording. They're just at 20, so the thing.
Oh, okay, got you. I was just
It's
making
like
sure we were
battery.
still rolling.
Yeah, Elon is an interesting dude.
Hey, Elon, have you heard of our Lord and Savior?
That's literally. I think that might have been like word for word what they said. It was
Wow.
so funny. And I mean, I'm sure it was part of the satire, but like
Yeah.
they went on with it for like a while, and to the point where like Elon looked like he was like, "Why the fuck are we still talking about this?" It was so funny. It was really funny.
If Elon converted to a religion, that would be. Imagine if he just became Buddhist or something. That'd be weird.
I think it would cause like mass conversions. Like, have you seen what's happened over the last few years, like with Jordan Peterson, and sort of how, like his
Is he converging a lot of people?
well, his daughter like somewhat recently like converted to Christianity. So I've heard like she started talking about like the Bible and God and like started to have like Catholic thought leaders on her podcast and like some interesting things like that. And a lot of like Jordan's not lectures necessarily, but a lot of the stuff he's talked about in podcasts and even in some of his books has like leaned more and more in this like theologically sound direction. And he like doesn't identify as an atheist anymore, I guess, or I don't know if he ever did, but like he's been more the point I'm trying to make is that like he's been leaning more and more towards some type of like possibly religion, or at least I should like footnote that as to say I'm like not insinuating that that's what's happening with him, but there is a lot of people on the internet who believe that from what they're seeing from Jordan that he's like on the verge of becoming a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, like if you look at the comments of any video on YouTube, like where he's talking about any of this stuff, and like everyone's like, I've been praying for Jordan for 10 years and he's almost there. He's going to convert so many people to Christianity. And like, it's very strange and very interesting, especially as like a former Christian. It's like really weird, especially because like when I left Christianity, like Jordan Peterson's voice and like his books were like a light for me because they were like in the middle of atheism and Christianity almost. Like they bridged the gap because they showed like, especially one of his older books, Maps of Meaning, which is really hard to read, but it's really about like the frameworks that lead to belief and like how belief works. And that book like really changed my perspective on how we come to conclusions about like our worldview. And he helped me find peace when I left Christianity. So to imagine that like the way he's talking now is like making people feel like they should become Christian. It's very, very interesting. And I'm curious to see like how that plays out, because you were talking about Elon Musk. If at any point Jordan Peterson came out and was like, I'm now a practicing Roman Catholic, like a few million people would be like, oh shit, I guess I'm a Catholic now, because they just trust everything that he says. And I think if he is religious at this point, I think part of the reason why he doesn't publicize it is probably because he knows like he's such an intelligent, great human being from my perspective, that I don't think he would risk saying something or behaving in a way that might lead people down a path that he's not fully prepared to lead them down. And he knows that at this point, he's not just some dude saying stuff. You know, like he has, interestingly, like he has cultural pull.
He really does.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
But scary. Really scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the reason why he probably has had a lot of health issues over the last few years, is like dealing with the weight. Yeah, dealing with the weight of that. Which shows me, I don't know, I really like resonate with him. Like the things that he like start crying about on a podcast or like get emotional about, or like that he really, really cares about. It's like, oh dude, I care about all those exact same things. Like I understand when he talks about the way it feel like the world feels to him, like I feel the exact same thing, you know? And I also love to how he thinks out loud, which is something that I do. And growing up, my family hated it and like did not see it as a virtue, but rather as a flaw.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say my family hated it. I'm not like saying anything negative about like my
Your
family.
son's
but it's
talking, you're like,
yeah,
quiet.
what
for
are
a
you talking
moment.
about? Yeah, exactly. Right. Like just casual. But, but those things like impact children more than you might think,
Mhm.
right? Even if they're casual and like offhand and with no malintent. And Jordan is one of those people that when he debates or when he lectures, like he'll just talk out loud, think out loud the words that are coming to his mind, but he chooses the words that actually come out very carefully. But it's like a stream of consciousness. Like he thinks it and then he says it. Like he's not saying stuff he already thought before. Yeah. He's like oftentimes saying things that he's thinking right now, which is one of the reasons why he's so careful about the words he says, because it like appears as though they're coming out like they're fresh, they're new. And sometimes oftentimes he'll go back. Well, that's not really what I mean. What I mean to say is, and of course, to add to that, like he'll add nuance and like, it's just so cool because he'll start with this like brash statement and then they'll clip that and like poster that and then say that he's like a right-wing extremist. And it's like, did you listen to the rest of the 8-minute video or just the first 9 seconds? It's like, oh, the first 9 seconds was all I needed. It's like, are you sure? Because right after that, he's like, and of course, what I really mean to say with more nuance is, and then he adds all the qualifiers and all the details and all the pitfalls in his point of view. And then he wraps up by saying, I'm not saying I'm perfect or that I'm right. And like, I just love the way he communicates because he's willing to say stuff that other people aren't, but then he also goes back and like requalifies what he says so that people can understand more accurately what he means. He just said recently on a podcast with Chris Williamson, I don't know, the Modern Wisdom podcast.
Okay.
His podcast is like blowing up. I forget the guy's last name. We'll say like Williamson or something like that. He's from the UK, I believe. And he did like an interview in Austin, I think, when he was there with Chris, because Chris was also in Austin. Funny enough, that was when Jordan was in Austin on his lecture tour, which I flew to Austin to see him in January, which was fucking amazing. Yeah. But they were talking, and Chris said, you know, you often talk about how men should become more dangerous. Right, like that a man, like a good man is a dangerous man who has it under voluntary control, is what Jordan says. And he says, so like, how do you suggest that like a man become, like, what can a man do to become more dangerous? And he said, not like what you might think. Like, he didn't say like, oh, like go squat 600 pounds. He said like, yeah, obviously like physical prowess is a thing, but it only takes you so far and only in certain environments and circles. But what really makes a man dangerous is learning how to articulate himself properly and accurately and with like sharpness that allows him to will onto reality what he wants. And ultimately, it's being able to properly articulate what you have to say that results in getting what you want, right? Like even as simple as a marketing message. If you don't properly articulate why somebody should give a shit, they won't. Mm-hmm. And that literally would make or break your entire business, or it could be your entire life. Same thing with, your girl. You're in a heated argument. If you articulate,
like Will Ferrell, man,
right? If you articulate your love for Will Ferrell in a way that doesn't fly, even if it's not exactly what you mean, right? Like I always say, I try my best to, and I fail every day, but I strive to say what I mean and mean what I say, and then I try to do what I say I will do, right? So it's like if you create that consistency where the words that are coming out are accurate to how you feel, then the world reacts to you in a completely different way than if you were more careless about how you articulate yourself. So to him, that's like the way to become as dangerous as possible, is being able to accurately articulate yourself in an advantageous and true way, which I think is beautiful. Because again, you say the wrong word in a business deal or in a relationship, or you don't say a word that you should have said, or you don't add enough detail or nuance, or you don't qualify your statement, like all these little things like can literally make or break major areas of your life. So imagine if like you were one word off in your relationship and you don't end up marrying the girl that you would have been really happy with, or the guy that you would have been really happy with, or in business, the deal that would have changed things for you, right? Like what if I didn't explain my story, my healing story, to my investors in a way that they truly understood why they should have given me money to go build this business, wouldn't be here.
Yeah, it's funny how that correlates because I have this guy that I've been following for a long time, and he's had a big influence on me and everything I've done. I don't want to specify his name.
Maybe off air?
Yeah. I could show you his account and stuff, but
cool.
Basically had a chance to have him on the podcast, but then he like asked to, he was like, what's the mission? I can't remember exactly what he asked, but it was like, so along the lines of like, what is the podcast?
Why should I give a shit?
Yeah. And I completely fumbled it. And this was like I wasn't thinking it was that important for me to like,
to do it right.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, it was blah, 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 blah. It's like, when are you free? And then no response after that. And I was like, yeah, I think I fumbled it. But
have you ever followed up with him since then?
I will.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah. That'd be beautiful.
I've gotten somewhat adept at cleaning up those kinds of messes only because I've made so many of them.
Yeah. Repetition.
Yeah. Funny enough, I did the same thing. Also with a podcast guest who would have been not the biggest person that I already have locked in for the podcast, but somebody who I like biggest in terms of reach, but somebody who I really admire, who I had developed a great relationship with in a very lucky scenario that I shouldn't even have been in to begin with, where I was already chumming with people that I didn't deserve to be chumming with. And I completely fumbled it because I didn't start the podcast soon enough because I took too much time, and he wanted to be my first guest. And that was like 2.5 years ago. And that whole thing really made me feel terrible. And what was even worse is I feel like what's funny is that I said some things online that I don't think that he liked, and he like unfollowed me on Instagram. And it wasn't until later that I saw that like he wasn't following me anymore, and so I like kind of put two and two together, and then like he was a bit shorter with me in like our communications after that. And what's funny is I really admire him and I really like respect him, but I think that I like offended him. But the reason why I brought that up is because I will continue to try to build and rebuild the relationship that I have with him because I care about him. But I won't go trying to fix the mistake that I made, because I don't feel that what I made was a mistake. Rather, what I feel I did was just what I was doing at the time that I felt I needed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so if I get on my hands and knees and say that I was a horrible person, I'm putting on myself this idea that my behavior wasn't acceptable the way that it was. And it was acceptable. It just wasn't that person's preference. And that doesn't make me love them less or admire or respect them less, but I don't want to compromise my own values to fit somebody else's mold.
And after this, what time are we at right now?
We are at 2 hours and 22 minutes.
Beautiful. I love it.
222, baby.
Gorgeous, man. 222.
Which is, okay, hello. We're releasing Ancestral Fuel on 4/22/2022 at 2:22 p.m.
What the, how did that work? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's
so
beautiful.
Friday, April 22nd, which is like just 2.5 weeks away.
Beautiful.
How many times is it a coincidence until it's mathematically impossible?
I don't know, but we're way past that point. That much I can tell you.
Wow. You guys are good closers. I was going to say one more thing, but that is the perfect
You want to close it there?
I was going to say...
seems anticlimactic. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to well it up in my soul first, so it's just like kind of flat. Little limp dick.
The cameras are just dying.
Yeah, that's what I'm ready for that. But real quick, the same guy that I fumbled the bag for a couple of days later, he was talking about even in his own like his own like work ethic or whatever. He said some things don't come to you because you're not ready for it.
Correct.
And I was like, low-key, when he messaged me back, and I've been following this guy for a long time, and I don't idolize anybody, but he's influenced me, man.
Sure,
I respect, and I get influenced from a lot of areas. I was like,
but this is
I wasn't ready for it. When I texted him back, that's why I did a short response, because I was like, oh God, he's down, and he just like talked back and forth with me. And I was like, oh yeah, the podcast is this. What time? I just wasn't ready for it, and I was like, okay, cool. But with that note, where can they?
Same for me.
Yeah, good.
You know. And you make mistakes every day. And like I said before, you just learn and you adapt. And maybe he'll come on your podcast later. Maybe I'll get this great guy on my podcast too someday. And if not, like, you know,
Is what it is.
even all-star players get out 2 out of 3 times when they play ball. So, you know, the best baseball players in the world, they bat what in their career? 330 maybe?
Yeah.
340 if they're like Ty Cobb or Pete Rose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even still, a 340 batting average means that like 66% of the time you don't get it.
Don't hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Where can they find you?
yeah. So,
And your brand and everything.
yeah. So the brand you can find at Ancient Strength on Instagram. We're most active on Instagram right now, so you can find us there on Instagram. Or if you are interested in trying Ancestral Fuel, releasing on April 22nd at 2:22 p.m., you can go to fuelyourevolution.com and enter in your email. Maybe you can pull that up, Kenny, real quick.
Yes.
You can go to fuelyourevolution.com. We're doing a really cool
Raffle for JP Sears tickets, right?
Yeah. So one lucky person is going to win flights and hotel for 2 people and 2 VIP tickets to go see JP Sears. Who, for those of you who don't know, obviously is freedom fighter, comedian, stand-up comedian, and YouTuber. Amazing guy, good friend of mine, incredible guy, and now a partner at Ancient Strength. So we're raffling away not only some free protein, but also an experience trip to come to West Palm Beach, Florida, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I'll be there as well as our COO, my wife, and some of the team. So that'll be really exciting. So you can go to fuelyourevolution.com and enter to win that. And, of course, buy the protein on April 22nd. And then also my personal social is just on Instagram is where I'm mostly active. And that's just mark.cuda, mark.cuda.
Perfect. Kind of sign us up on that, and let's get those tickets. Mr. Mark, I appreciate you coming on. We'll do it again.
For sure.
You were amazing.
Cool.
You were amazing.
Thanks, buddy.
Signing off.
Peace.